Chapter 1189, The Innate Chaotic Body, 1, Jian Chen chuckled. He looked at how cute and innocent Xiaoling was and affectionately asked, "Then Xiaoling, how do you want me to reward you?" "The reward I want is for Big Brother to come visit me often in the future," Xiaoling giggled. "All right, no problem. I will come visit you often when I have the time. Is that okay?" Jian Chen laughed. "Awesome, Big Brother. Don't go back on your word." Xiaoling danced in joy. She was extremely happy. Under Xiaoling's lead, Jian Chen was taken to where Ming Dong and Huang Tianba had gone into seclusion. Both of them were captivated by the comprehension of the mysteries of the world and entered a state of selflessness. Jian Chen only watched from afar. He did not disturb the two of them. In recent years, they had spent all their time here cultivating, comprehending the mysteries of the world invoked by Xiaoling. They were comprehending them from an extremely clear perspective, allowing them to understand the profound truths of the world better. This was countless times easier compared to when they were alone, searching within the layers of mist, so the rate at which they cultivated was shocking. Huang Tianba has already reached the 8th heavenly layer now. He's not far from the 9th anymore, and if he continues like this, he'll probably become a glorious Saint King in just a year. Ming Dong's rate of improvement was extremely great as well. His talent was impressive, and coupled with Tianjian and Xiaoling's assistance, he had already reached the 7th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler. Jian Chen did not stay for too long. He promised Xiaoling that he would visit again very soon before leaving through the space gate at Mercenary City. Xiaoling looked in the direction Jian Chen had vanished off to in reminiscence. She mumbled, "Master's smell on Big Brother is getting fainter and fainter. Looks like it's been a very long time since Big Brother saw Master, but that doesn't matter anymore. As long as Big Brother visits me often, I will be very happy." Big Brother said that as long as I work hard on the cultivation method left behind by Master, I'll be able to see Master soon. Big Brother will not trick me, so I can't keep snoozing. I need to work hard on cultivation. Xiaoling clenched her fists tightly as determination filled her face. She seemed to have made a very important decision. Jian Chen returned to Lore City, and Rui Jin had also returned from Dragon Island with enough dragon saliva. Hong Lian had also refined all the materials into formations and had come out of the artifact space. Their operation to seal up the Protector Changyang clan was about to happen. Jian Chen, Yu Yu, Hong Lian, and Rui Jin gathered together to discuss the plan. Only the 4 of them would be participating in the operation, as He Yu was just too heavily poisoned. The sealing of the passage between the Protector clan and the outside world won't happen very easily. We will definitely face the resistance of the Protector clan or even face the attacks from the Emperor armament. As the plan is carried out, I need to devote all my strength into casting the secret technique, so I will not be able to provide assistance. It'll depend entirely on the 3 of you to fend off the Protector clan. During the process of sealing, the space must maintain a certain level of stability. If the ripples are too great, it may even lead to failure, so you 3 need to enter the miniature world of the Changyang clan to stop them. The battle cannot occur outside, Rui Jin sternly explained. They needed to succeed this time, or Tai Ta's identity would definitely be leaked by the furious Great Elders. "Rui Jin, how long do we have to keep them busy?" Hong Lian asked. "Since we're sealing a Protector clan this time, it'll take quite some time." "I need 4 hours, replied Rui Jin. Hong Lian frowned. "We'll be fighting in the miniature world this time. That's their lair, and with their deep heritage, they'll definitely have various trump cards they've never displayed. They'll definitely resist with everything they have as well, so it will be quite difficult if we want to keep them busy for 4 hours and prevent them from affecting the space outside. The energy within the Moon God Scepter from my master is running out. The Divine Hall must be outside to use the Moonlight Essence, so once it enters the miniature world, it'll only be able to defend. It won't have any offensive capabilities," said Yu Yu. "No matter what, we can't fail this time. If we aren't completely confident, then we can't act recklessly," Jian Chen said heavily. He could not afford failure this time, since Tai Ta's identity would end up being leaked sooner instead. If only that girl was with us as well, Rui Jin gently sighed. He had actually thought of the heavenly enchantress at this very moment. Her beautiful figure flashed through Jian Chen's mind. It was only a pity that the heavenly enchantress failed to obtain the saint's fruit from him and had left in resentment. Jian Chen knew that he would probably be turned down before he could even ask her for help. At this moment, the gentle tune of the zither vibrated through the air after overcoming many obstructions. It was gentle and seemed to contain an endless amount of charm, able to silently impact the souls of people. Jian Chen, Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and the others all focused their attention when they heard the sound. She sure has come at the right time. Jian Chen, whether or not we can successfully seal up the Protector clan will depend on you. Go and have a good talk with her. It'll be much easier if we have her assistance. Rui Jin chuckled as he subconsciously glanced over Yu Yu. An odd light flashed through Yu Yu's eyes. She blinked a few times but remained silent. However, she looked at Jian Chen. Jian Chen had not expected the heavenly enchantress to come at this time. He said to Yu Yu, "Where, I'll be right back." With that, he left. Jian Chen could not sense the heavenly enchantress' presence nor could he identify where the melody came from. All he could do was expand his presence to find her. A while later, Jian Chen retracted his presence and shot into the sky. He vanished into a thick layers of clouds in the blink of an eye. In the sea of clouds, the wind whistled in an ear-piercing fashion. Jian Chen walked through the clouds as his robes and hair were buffeted by the wind. The heavenly enchantress stood in the clouds. A veil covered her face, obscuring her appearance like before, but the zither of the demonic cry was no longer in her hands. Next to her stood a young, white, and chubby boy. She held on to his hand as invisible world force wrapped around him, obstructing the whistling gale. Jian Chen instinctively looked at the boy and his body immediately jerked. He was no longer able to shift his focus. The chaotic Niden within his dantian, which had always sat silently, began to violently tremble. Strands of chaotic force surged out, rampaging through his body uncontrollably. CSG now has a Patreon set up, where you can read up to 35 chapters ahead. Chapter 1190, The Innate Chaotic Body, 2. The boy stared at Jian Chen in complete curiosity with his naive and innocent eyes. His white, chubby face became flushed very quickly and his body temperature skyrocketed. The heavenly enchantress was holding onto Xiao Bao's hand. She discovered that his hand had become boiling hot, so she immediately began to panic. She asked in concern, "Xiao Bao, why have you become so warm?" It's so hot," Xiao Bao said uncomfortably. His face had become completely flushed while his body temperature continued to skyrocket, quickly reaching a point that ordinary people could not endure. However, Xiao Bao was not in any pain other than being in discomfort. The heavenly enchantress quickly dropped down and touched Xiao Bao all over in a panic. To her surprise, Xiao Bao was boiling hot all over, as if he had become a flaming hot searing iron. Why would this happen? Why would Xiao Bao suddenly become so warm for no reason? The heavenly enchantress became more and more flustered inside. Xiao Bao's temperature had already reached an unbelievable level. If he was an ordinary person, he probably would have passed away long ago. Jian Chen's face also became rather red. Not only did the chaotic Niden in his dantian lose control when he caught sight of Xiao Bao, even his blood began to flow faster. If the normal flow rate of his blood was like someone walking, it had turned into an uncontrollable horse right now. It quickly flowed within him in an extremely violent fashion. Surprise filled Jian Chen's face. He had no idea why this would suddenly happen. He too could not come up with an answer after thinking very much. It was the first time something like this had happened since he had begun cultivating the chaotic body. Vaguely, Jian Chen seemed to feel that he resonated with the boy in front of him in a certain sense. The two of them were drawn together. It was not just an attraction of chaotic force, but the attraction of a much deeper bloodline. Suddenly, Jian Chen seemed to think of something. He stared at the bright red Xiao Bao in shock, and he could not help but begin to gently tremble. Excitement and disbelief filled his eyes. Jian Shen made his way through the clouds and slowly arrived by Xiao Bao's side. He crouched down and gently rubbed Xiao Bao's head. He asked, "Child, what's your name?" Xiao Bao suddenly felt much better as Jian Shen slowly rubbed his head. Although he still felt like he was on fire, which was very uncomfortable, he did not continue to get hotter. Xiao Bao stared unblinkingly at Jian Shen's well-defined, handsome face and instinctively answered, "I'm called Xiao Bao." As soon as he said that, the heavenly enchantress pushed Jian Shen away. She stared at him furiously and said, "Don't touch Xiao Bao. Stay away from him." Xiao Bao. Xiao Bao. Jian Shen became rather absent-minded as he mumbled Xiao Bao's name. His heart beat violently and his gaze toward Xiao Bao was now filled with a gentleness that had never appeared before. "He's my child, right?" "He's my son," Jian Shen asked with a trembling voice. He did not need the heavenly enchantress reply since he could sense it through his bloodline. This was a characteristic that only unique constitutions possessed. The heavenly enchantress became utterly flustered. She had once weaved countless lies for Xiao Bao's identity, but she never thought that Jian Shen would see through it all with a single glance before she could say anything. No, he's not your child. Xiao Bao's not your child." The heavenly enchantress lost her usual composure and pulled Xiao Bao behind her in a flustered manner. Xiao Bao's identity had always been her greatest secret, yet it had been revealed today, and it had been revealed to the person that she did not want to know about it the most. It completely unnerved her. However, Jian Shen already knew the answer from her vehement denial and response. He felt extremely mixed feelings at that moment in time. Xiao Bao stuck his head out from behind the heavenly enchantress and looked at Jian Shen in curiosity. He asked with a clear voice, "Are you my dad?" "No, Xiao Bao, he's not your dad," the heavenly enchantress followed up quickly. Her eyes gradually became misty, and she immediately used her hands to cover Xiao Bao's eyes, preventing him from seeing Jian Shen. "Mum, you're lying. I can feel that he's my dad." Xiao Bao tried very hard to peel away the heavenly enchantress' hands from his eyes, but how could the heavenly enchantress let him? She pressed down harder and harder, but she did it very gently in fear that she would harm him. "Mum, I want to see Dad. I want to see," Xiao Bao yelled and began to use everything he had. Immediately, a faint layer of gray gas appeared from his hand. With its appearance, the light in the surroundings twisted slightly, as if it had been drawn toward the gas. Looking closely, it could even cause the wrong impression. The gray gas seemed to contain the various colors of the world, and almost any color of the world could appear within it, but it contained all of them. However, all the colors seemed to disappear again the next moment while the faint grayness now seemed ordinary. Xiao Bao's power also increased at an extraordinary rate with the appearance of the gray gas. He pulled off the heavenly enchantress' hands in one stroke, which stunned her. Jian Shen became rather stunned as well. He stared blankly at the rapidly vanishing gas around Xiao Bao's hands as his heart began to churn. Chaotic force. This is chaotic force. How is this possible? Jian Shen became extremely shocked. He struggled to believe what he had just seen. Thinking back to when he had first started cultivating the chaotic body, he completely relied on the sword spirits and still needed to endure excruciating pain. In no way was it easy, yet Xiao Bao was clearly a child, but he could control chaotic force. It was impossible for him to not be shocked. This was because only Jian Shen knew just how rare the chaotic body was. Even in the age that the sword spirits had come from, it was still almost non-existent. Suddenly, two streaks of light, one azure and one violet, appeared above Jian Shen's head. They quickly condensed into a boy and girl. The boy was handsome while the girl was pretty. Standing together, they seemed like a match made in heaven. The sword spirits had appeared after so long, and their forms seemed to be even more solid than before. The sword spirits looked at Xiao Bao, and their eyes became filled with serendipity. The innate chaotic body. An innate chaotic body has actually appeared here, Ziying could not help but cry out. His face was filled with excitement. Qing Suo also clenched her hands. She stared at Xiao Bao without blinking at all, and she was extremely excited as well. She said, "It really is the innate chaotic body, and its master's child. Fantastic, this is just fantastic." Jianchen could obviously hear what the sword spirits had said, so he became even more excited inside. The heavenly enchantress and Xiao Bao were both drawn to the sword spirits. They looked at the two of them. Xiao Bao became extremely curious while the heavenly enchantress' eyes narrowed. She was skilled in attacks of the soul, so her own soul was extremely powerful. She could feel the sword spirits existed as soul-like entities, but they were different than what she understood. "Who are you? What innate chaotic body?" The heavenly enchantress became filled with caution. She carefully protected Xiao Bao by stepping in front of him. Before the sword spirits, she felt an extremely great threat. She knew that they were extremely terrifying souls and that they were different from all other, regular souls. Qing Suo smiled when she saw how cautious the heavenly enchantress had become. She said softly, "Mistress, there's no need to get nervous. We are sword spirits and I am called Qing Suo while he's called Ziying. Don't worry, we won't harm you. The chaotic body is the most powerful constitution in the world while chaotic force is the most powerful energy in the world. Your child has been born with the chaotic body, so he can control chaotic force." The heavenly enchantress became rather confounded by what Qing Suo had said. Xiao Bao was in possession of the world's strongest body. And he could control the world's strongest energy? Did that mean Xiao Bao could cultivate and was not a cripple whose constitution could not even be modified by a 10,000-year heavenly resource? "Dad, are you my dad?" Xiao Bao could not understand what the sword spirits were saying. He looked at Jianchen again with his bright eyes. Perhaps it was due to the fact that they both were in possession of the chaotic body or because of their bloodline, but Xiao Bao found Jianchen to be especially close to him at first glance. Unknowingly, he had already developed a reliable feeling toward Jianchen. Jianchen arrived in front of him with a single step and lifted him up, rubbing his chubby face. He said with a dumb smile, "My son, you're my son." "I actually have a son." The heavenly enchantress had become stunned by what the sword spirits had said, so she did not respond for some time. All she could do was watch helplessly as Jianchen lifted up Xiao Bao. Although she did not want it to happen, she cared more about what Qing Suo had said. Was there any mother who did not want their son to have an impressive future? "Dad, Mum said that I have no dad." Mum lied. "I do have a dad," Xiao Bao said loudly in Jianchen's bosom before turning to the heavenly enchantress. He asked in confusion, "Mum, I clearly have a dad, so why have you always told me I don't?" Mum lied, Mum lied. Xiao Bao was not very old, but he was extremely clever. At that moment, the heavenly enchantress actually felt that facing Xiao Bao's innocent gaze was rather daunting. Her expression became mixed. Everything that occurred here was already beyond her control. The union of father and son had already become an unchangeable fact. Even if she wanted to deny Xiao Bao's identity, it would not work. Sucking in a deep breath, the heavenly enchantress slowly calmed herself down. Very soon, she recovered her usual coldness and turned around, so her back now faced Jianchen. Her hair danced in the incoming wind as she said, "Xiao Bao could never cultivate before. It did not even work when I used a 10,000-year heavenly resource. Since you know that Xiao Bao is in possession of the chaotic body, you should be able to deal with his problem." Jianchen turned to Ziying and Qing Suo. Only the two of them could give a clear and definite explanation on such a deep topic. CSG now has a Patreon set up, where you can read up to 35 chapters ahead. Chapter 1191, Shangguan Aojian. The sword spirits remained silent for a while before Ziying then explained, "It's not because the innate chaotic body cannot cultivate, but no cultivation method in the world is suitable for the chaotic body. Only a corresponding approach will work. And the growth of the chaotic body is nowhere near as simple as you have thought. The first step of cultivation would be to forge and refine the body. Only after that's completed will chaotic force appear inside the body. Was that gray energy that appeared on Xiao Bao's hands before chaotic force? The heavenly enchantress stared at Ziying without blinking. At that moment, she dedicated all her attention to Xiao Bao. She wanted to learn the mysteries of Xiao Bao's chaotic body as soon as possible. However, she could not help but think of Jian Chen when she thought about the gray energy that had appeared before. She had once seen the power controlled by Jian Chen, and her sharp senses picked up that the gray gas was extremely similar to the power used by Jian Chen. It was just that Xiao Bao's power lacked a presence of destruction. Correct. That's chaotic force, but it's only chaotic force hidden within him to refine his body. Since Xiao Bao became excited just then, he subconsciously activated it. However, Xiao Bao's chaotic body has not been fully forged, so all the energy he absorbs will fuse into his flesh and forge his body on its own. Only once this step has been completed will chaotic force appear within the Dantian, and he will be able to cultivate, Ziying explained in detail. The heavenly enchantress sank into her thoughts. She mumbled, looks like it's not that the heavenly resource was useless to Xiao Bao, but it was not enough to fulfill what he needed. The chaotic force is a power that belongs to the apex of the cosmos. Forging a single strand of the power will require vast quantities of energy. Let alone a single 10,000-year heavenly resource, even 10 won't be enough, because Xiao Bao's chaotic body has not even progressed to a tenth of the forging from my observations. Such a weak body cannot withstand the rampage of chaotic force, Qing Sua seriously explained. She and Ziying were both sword spirits, but they had existed for an extremely lengthy amount of time. They had seen people with the chaotic bodies many times, so they possessed an extremely clear understanding regarding the strongest body of the world. Sigh, Ziying suddenly exhaled. His gaze toward Xiao Bao became rather melancholy as he said, I can't even remember how long it's been since the innate chaotic body has appeared. From what I can remember, even in our world, the innate chaotic body only appeared 3 times since most chaotic bodies were acquired. It's just the energy of the world here is far too thin. It's already extremely difficult to accommodate Master's chaotic body. Now with an innate chaotic body, the resources are nowhere near enough, and the further he progresses, the energy he needs will become even more tremendous. The heavenly enchantress became stunned and she slightly frowned. From what Ziying had said, she could already tell that it would probably be extremely difficult for Xiao Bao to increase his strength in the future. Things will sort themselves out. Ziying, Qing Sua, I will obviously find a way to find the energy Xiao Bao needs in the future to increase his strength. The most important matter right now is for Xiao Bao to finish forging his body, said Jian Chen. He paused and sank into thought before continuing, Ziying, Qing Sua, Xiao Bao is in possession of the chaotic body just like me. Can I use my own chaotic body to help him forge his body? No, Ziying declined without a second thought. He sternly explained, Master, Xiao Bao may be in possession of the innate chaotic body, but in terms of strength, his body has not reached the appropriate toughness. He can't endure the chaotic force of the 3rd layer. Looks like I can only use heavenly resources, Jian Chen regretfully replied. Just the resources required to elevate the chaotic body from the 1st layer to the 3rd layer were terrifying, while the energy required to reach the 4th layer was even more terrifying. Jian Chen could already imagine just how difficult it would become for Xiao Bao to increase his strength. To the sword spirits, 2 chaotic bodies appearing at the same time was a grievous matter in this world that lacked energy. Jian Chen calmed down and looked at Xiao Bao in his arms. He said, Xiao Bao, the name your mother gave you is not great. Do you want your father to give you another one? Okay. Xiao Bao did not feel conflicted at all and agreed in straightforward manner. Then let me think what name I should give you. Jian Chen furrowed his brows as he thought seriously. The heavenly enchantress' eyes grew cold and she took Xiao Bao back in one stroke. She said, you don't need to worry about that. I've already given Xiao Bao a name. He will be called Shengguan Baoer. Shengguan Baoer? Why the surname Shengguan? Jian Chen asked in uncertainty. The heavenly enchantress coldly replied, I will never let you change Xiao Bao's surname to Changyang. Jian Chen pondered a little and replied in a serious tone, I never planned on changing his surname to Changyang, but the surname Jian does not sound great either. Oh well, I'll go with your suggestion. Xiao Bao's surname will be Shangguan, but I need to change his given name. Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress became embroiled in an intense argument over Xiao Bao's given name, but it was finally agreed on in the end, Shangguan Aojian. Xiao Bao seemed rather happy with the name as well, so he constantly let out his excitement in a happy tone in the heavenly enchantress' arms. Afterward, Jian Chen pulled out 20 10,000-year heavenly resources and gave them to the heavenly enchantress so Xiao Bao could establish a foundation in cultivation. Most of the heavenly resources were found on Dragon Island by the White Tiger. Now that the tiger had reached Class 7, the heavenly resources were insignificant to him, so using them on Xiao Bao was more suitable. At this moment, Jian Chen sternly made a request as he stared at the heavenly enchantress, I have something else I wish you can help me with. My good friend Tai Ta is the war god of the 100 races. His identity has been discovered by the protector Changyang clan, and the great elder Changyang Qin Yun wants me to give him the saint's fruit, or he'll announce Tai Ta's identity. At that time, the experts from both the Tian Yuan continent and the Beast God continent will come looking for trouble with us. In order to keep Tai Ta's identity a secret, I have decided, along with Senior Roy Jin and the others, to seal up the passage between the Changyang clan and the outside world. However, it will be rather difficult for us to accomplish that task with our current strength, so I hope you can assist me. Deal with the problems you caused yourself, the heavenly enchantress replied rather ruthlessly before turning to the sword spirits. She said, I hope you can pass on a suitable method of cultivation to Xiao Bao. Ziying did not hesitate at all. After all, this was Jian Chen's child, so he extended a finger toward him. A violet light flashed out and disappeared into the center of Xiao Bao's eyebrows. Xiao Bao's head dropped, and he immediately fell asleep in the heavenly enchantress' arms. The heavenly enchantress glanced at Xiao Bao gently. Now that her reasons for coming had been fulfilled, she no longer had any need to stay. She shot off into the distance as a streak of light with Xiao Bao, disappearing into the horizon very quickly. Jian Chen sighed at the sky as the heavenly enchantress departed. He felt both joy and worry. He was joyous over the fact that he suddenly had a son, but he worried over the fact that the heavenly enchantress had declined to assist them in dealing with the Changyang clan. The pressure they would be under in carrying out the operations had increased a lot. Before Tai Ta's matter has been dealt with, I can't expose that I have a son, or it'll probably bring a lot of problems to Xiao Bao. Even the heavenly enchantress might get dragged into all of this, Jian Chen thought. He knew that if he did not hand over Tai Ta out of his own accord after his identity was leaked, the experts of the Tian Yuan continent and Beast God continent would use everything they had to target his family and his friends, the people close to him in particular. As a result, he could not let too many people know about Xiao Bao. I never thought that the person who benefited from absorbing the Supreme Yin Qi and Supreme Yang Qi from the Yin Yang Saint Rock would be her, Qing Suo murmured to herself as an odd light filled her eyes. Ziying murmured as well. He said, the mother of the innate chaotic body will be blessed by the heavens. Since she has given birth to someone in possession of the chaotic body, she will receive endless benefits as well. Not only will her strength rapidly increase, her potential is unlimited. If she continues down the path of cultivation, she'll definitely become an immortal emperor at the very least, and she'll be the strongest one among all the immortal emperors. Jian Chen returned to the Changyang clan and did not tell anyone about Xiao Bao. However, Roy Jin obviously became extremely regretful when he learned that the heavenly enchantress had declined to assist them. We can't drag it out any longer. We've already completed the preparations, so let's set off as soon as possible, Roy Jin decided in a heavy voice. They had already made thorough preparations for what they were about to do next. Afterward, Jian Chen, Roy Jin, Hong Lian, and Yu Yu set off for the Protector clan together. The bright moon divine hall floating above the city was taken back by Yu Yu. The Bright Moon Divine Hall would be their greatest defense while dealing with the Changyang clan this time. A large number of magical beasts dwelled in an ancient, desolate mountain range that was extremely far away from Lore City. Not only were there terrestrial beasts, there were also birds that could fly in the sky. There were even quite a few Class 6 magical beasts. CSG now has a Patreon set up, where you can read up to 35 chapters ahead. Chapter 1192, Sealing the Changyang Clan. 1. Deep growls and elated cries would reverberate from the quiet mountain range from time to time. There would even be a few magical beasts hunting. Their intense fights created loud roars and chilling cries that rang out far and wide, scaring all the weaker magical beasts back to their dens. Large group of Class 2 and 3 vultures flew through the air in a circle over a certain area. They constantly scanned across the landscape with their merciless eyes. As soon as they found a suitable target, the entire flock would move and devour the magical beasts. Although the vultures were not powerful by themselves, they had the advantage of numbers. There were several hundred of them, so even Class 4 magical beasts would become their prey. An elated cry rang out from the distance. A black speck suddenly appeared on the horizon, flying toward the flock of vultures. All the birds immediately became uneasy and fled in all directions in a hurried manner. They seemed to have encountered something terrifying, scaring them all. The speck rapidly grew larger. It was a flying magical beast with the body of a snake, 4 wings, and a pair of sharp claws. It dove into the flock of vultures. It caught a vulture with its mouth and 2 others in its sharp claws. The claws punctured the vultures' bodies, causing them to uncontrollably produce a chilling cry from the excruciating pain. As the vultures fled in all directions, arrows of energy shot out of their mouths. They quickly flew toward the 4-winged magical beast. The magical beast did not dodge. It looked at the arrows like they were jokes and used its body to resist the vulture's most powerful attacks. Ding! 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 The sound of clashing metal appeared since the unimpressive black feathers on the magical beast were actually extremely tough. The most powerful attacks from the vultures were not enough to pose any harm to it. The magical beast had already reached Class 5. There was a divide between Class 5 and Class 4. The several hundred Class 2 and 3 vultures could indeed kill Class 4 magical beasts without much difficulty, but they could do nothing to one that was Class 5. The 4-winged magical beast flapped its wings. It charged toward the other vultures as a black streak of light. It still held a vulture in its mouth, and the 2 within its claws struggled violently. It spread its wings wide and all the vultures were cleaved in half as soon as they came in contact with the steel-like wings. Blood dyed the air. In just a few seconds, over 20 vultures had died to the 4-winged magical beast, yet it also stopped its hunt at this moment as well. It glanced coldly and viciously at the vultures that fled into the distance as a human-like sliver of disdain appeared in its eyes. The magical beast seemed to sense something. A gleam of light flashed through its human-like eyes as it raised its head to look up. Afterward, it suddenly began to plummet with a flap of its wings, disappearing into the thicket underneath. The space several hundred meters up suddenly began to twist violently, before it was ripped open. A colorful space gate stabilized in just a few seconds and Rui Jin, Hong Lian, Jian Chen, and Yu Yu emerged in order. The space gate also rapidly disappeared after they had appeared, and the space there returned to how it had been before. Rui Jin, Hong Lian, Yu Yu, and Jian Chen all looked ahead. The world gate connecting the protector Changyang clan to the outside world was hidden 100 meters in front of them. The world gate was hidden extremely well, making it impossible for anyone to notice any signs of it. However, the disadvantage of a world gate was that its location could not be moved. Rui Jin seemed to sense something at this moment. A weird light appeared in his eyes, and he turned to the thicket beneath him. His ordinary gaze pierced through the vegetation and clearly saw what was hidden beneath. I never thought that I'd find a winged dragon here. It contains a sliver of the dragon clan's bloodline, Rui Jin said in surprise. To him, this was a complete surprise. The thicket beneath began to shake slightly and the four-winged magical beast slowly flew out. It was very intelligent, so it did not keep hiding after learning that Roy Jean had discovered it. The four-winged magical beast did not move quickly. It kept its head very low and steadily made its way in front of Roy Jean. It behaved like a servant and its sharp gaze had completely disappeared now. It was now replaced by respect. The four-winged magical beast was a winged dragon that possessed a sliver of the dragon clan's bloodline. Although it was not pure, it could still be considered a close relative of the dragons, which was why it possessed such a sensitivity toward the bloodline of dragon kings. Now that the dragon clan had disappeared, Roy Jean immediately felt especially close to the winged dragon. He asked, "Are there more dragons other than you?" The winged dragon immediately shook its head and produced several deep growls after listening to what Roy Jean said. Roy Jean gently sighed and a sliver of despair appeared in his eyes. Afterward, he said to the winged dragon, "A great battle is about to erupt here. Leave immediately so you don't get harmed by the shockwaves." The winged dragon bid farewell to Roy Jean courteously before leaving. With a flap of its wings, it immediately turned into a blur and shot off into the distance. It moved extremely quick. After the winged dragon's departure, Roy Jin's gaze returned to where the world gate of the Changyang clan was. He heavily said, "I'll use the absolute secret technique of the dragon clan to seal up this region of space immediately. Be prepared. As I seal it, there will be great ripples of energy that will definitely raise the attention of the people in the clan. When the time comes, you have to fight in the Protector clan, not outside." Hong Lian, Jian Chen, and Yu Yu sternly nodded. Afterward, the light of flames shot into the sky and the surrounding temperature began to increase quickly. Both the 9 refined Godfire Feathermail and Scorching Godfire Hairpin had appeared on Hong Lian. With a flip of his hand, Jian Chen drew his Emperor armament from his space ring. He clenched the hilt tightly as his chaotic Niden constantly spat out chaotic force, filling up every inch of his body instantly. Yu Yu also carried the bright moon divine hall in her palm. She gently threw it into the air and the divine hall expanded in the incoming wind. It became several dozen meters long in the blink of an eye and the main entrance opened slowly. Immediately, pure moonlight flowed out and enveloped Yu Yu before sucking her in. Roy Jean had also pulled out 9 stalks of dragon saliva from his space ring. Every single stalk was as tall as a full-grown man, yet they seemed ordinary, just like any old weed. There was nothing special about them. The million-year-old dragon saliva hid tremendous amounts of pure vital energy. Similar to the saint's fruit, it had already reached the level of returning to its original simple looks. The 9 stalks hovered in the air and created a formation. Roy Jean then bit his finger and allowed a droplet of golden blood to fall on each of the 9 grasses, which was then immediately absorbed. The jade-green leaves of the dragon saliva slowly turned golden and an extremely pure vital energy pervaded them. The energy seemed to have been activated by the drop of blood. Roy Jean did not stop at all and immediately began to create hand seals. He used a secret technique of the dragon clan to activate all the vital energy within the grasses. Immediately, a vast amount of vital energy, so great that it was enough to disturb Jian Chen, appeared. After the accumulation of over 1,000,000 years, the energy within the grasses was so vast that no one could measure it. A huge and majestic divine hall sat on the floating piece of land within the space of the Protector clan. In an extremely well-adorned room, Changyang Qin Yun paced around while deep in thought, as if something weighed on his heart. His expression was filled with some worry and anticipation, and he wasn't as composed as he usually was. Over the past few days, all he could think of was the saint's fruit. He did not care for the departure of Changyang Zhu Shao and his clansmen at all. Nothing was more important than becoming Saint Emperor. Although the Changyang clan's strength had plummeted with their departure, Changyang Qin Yun remained completely indifferent. This was because even if the Changyang clan had become the weakest Protector clan out of the 10, their status still could not be replaced by another organization. The heritage they possessed was so deep that no ancient clan could match up against them. At this moment, Changyang Qin Yunfeng walked in from outside. He was rosy and possessed much vigor, currently in a great condition. He had been injured by Changyang Zhu Yunxiao's founding god's punch, but he had been completely healed with the medicines of the clan. Qing Yun, do you think Jian Chen will give up the saint's fruit on of his own accord for the war god of the 100 races? Changyang Qing Yunfeng asked. Changyang Qing Yun thought in silence and responded soon afterward, over the past few days, I've specifically investigated Jian Chen. According to what I know, he should be a person who views ties of friendship with great importance. He definitely won't forsake his friend's safety for the sake of his own benefits. If the reports describe him correctly, he'll definitely obediently hand over the fruit because he knows the war god will definitely die if he doesn't. Changyang Qing Yunfeng remained silent for a while. He then sternly said, Qing Yun, you should know what it means now that the war god of the 100 races has appeared. Our Tianyuan continent no longer has a sovereign-like figure like in the ancient times. If we let the war god go for the saint's fruit, the Tianyuan continent will definitely face disaster in the future after he matures. Not to mention, we're using him to coerce Jian Chen for the saint's fruit. In the future, he'll definitely take revenge against us first after he matures. Changyang Qing Yun sinisterly smiled with that, Yunfeng, you don't need to worry about that because the war god won't have the chance to become a sovereign-like figure. Changyang Qing Yunfeng stared blankly before understanding very quickly. He too evilly smiled. Are you saying that you'll leak the war god's identity as soon as you obtain the saint's fruit? Correct. The war god will definitely become a sovereign-like figure in the future. Even if I use the saint's fruit to break through to Saint Emperor, I won't be anywhere near his opponent. How can I let such a powerful opponent successfully grow? Changyang Qing Yun sneered. Then I don't have to worry, Changyang Qing Yunfeng smiled. At this moment, Changyang Qing Yun's expression changed. He heavily said, oh no, someone's attacking our Changyang clan. With that, he disappeared and reappeared at the entrance of the divine hall. At the same time, the heavy sound of a bell rang through the entire clan. It was the sound of the bell of grand clarity, but a chilling aura was present, as if it was a war drum. With the chime, the quiet clan immediately fell into a commotion. More and more people emerged from their residences or flew over from various mountain peaks on the floating piece of land. The bell of grand clarity had two different chimes. One was peaceful, used specifically to welcome valued guests, while the second one could shock the souls of people. It was filled with a chilling presence, and it was the alarm for battle. The 5 remaining great elders stood beside one another in front of the divine hall. They were all stern. Through the sensing mirror of the ancestral hall, I've discovered that there's someone casting an unknown formation against our clan. Everyone, follow me to face the opponent. Immediately open the world gate, Changyang Qing Yun angrily yelled. His face was sunken since he was furious. CSG now has a Patreon set up, where you can read up to 35 chapters ahead. Chapter 1193, Sealing the Changyang Clan, 2. The 9 stalks of dragon saliva hovered in the air in a formation outside the Changyang clan's world gate. The vast amounts of vital energy within them had all been activated, causing every stalk of grass to glow with a dazzling golden light as tremendous energy surged within. Rui Jin formed hand seals sternly and rapidly changed between them at different rates. He seemed to have established an extremely obscure and mysterious connection with the 9 grasses. Hong Lian, Jian Chen, and Yu Yu all stood sternly as they devoted all their attention to the space up ahead. The space the 3 of them were examining began to violently twist and then suddenly rippled open. 100-meter-tall space gate formed. This was the world gate of the protector Changyang clan, the only passageway connecting it to the outside world. The world gate's size could be changed accordingly, but 100 meters tall was its absolute limit. A landscape could be seen clearly through the world gate. It seemed rather similar to the outside world, but it was completely different. Beautiful mountains and clear rivers stood and flowed in there. The landscape was so beautiful that it could not be compared to the outside world, and the dense energy of the world was much different. It was several times more abundant compared to the outside world. Cultivation would definitely be much easier and be a more efficient process in there. A tremendous presence appeared from within the world gate with an unhidable fury. With Changyang Qingyun as the leader, a total of several dozen experts stood within the world gate. Their presences fused together and surged out from inside like a primordial beast. Changyang Qingyun glanced coldly at Jian Chen and the others before returning to Jian Chen. He growled, "Jian Chen, speak your intentions." Jian Chen, Hong Lian, and Yu Yu looked at each other. As if they could read each other's minds, they charged into the world gate at the same time. Hong Lian ran at the front. Red flames flickered on her body, making her look like a goddess of flames. Before she had even approached the world gate, a large swathe of flames drifted from her and shot toward the group of people with lightning-like speed. The 5 great elders immediately beamed inside when they saw that Hong Lian and the others actually wanted to blindly charge into the miniature world. They all sneered in disdain. They knew Hong Lian's strength. She was a saint king at great perfection, and her original form was a scorching divine phoenix. Together with her 2 powerful origin energy treasures, she had the power to challenge saint emperors, and she would not suffer defeat even if she faced them. If it was any other place, the 5 great elders would not be able to do anything to her, but it was a whole different story if it was within the Protector clan. The 5 great elders and the several dozen saint rulers behind them retreated in unison. They did not stop Hong Lian, nor did they resist the sea of fire that drifted over. They just watched the terrifyingly hot fire enter the clan. The lips of the 5 great elders all curled into a deep smile, as if they were welcoming Hong Lian, Yu Yu, and Jian Chen's entry. Although a battle in the miniature world would result in mass destruction, they also possessed an absolute advantage in the miniature world. Hong Lian and Jian Chen charged into the miniature world one after another while the bright moon divine hall under Yu Yu's control shrank a little. She followed behind them. Close the world gate. Changyang Qingyun used a communication technique to give a command to the saint rulers behind him. Immediately, a tremendous, surging energy leaked from their bodies, completely enshrouding them. The energy began to shrink rapidly in size, condensing a suit of armor around them very quickly. The 4 other great elders all condensed a suit of armor as well to increase their defenses. Afterward, Changyang Qingyun and Changyang Yuan Wuji, who was only slightly weaker, faced off against Hong Lian while Changyang Qingyun Feng and Changyang Qingjuri dealt with Jian Chen. Changyang Yuan Zhenghua faced Yu Yu in the bright moon divine hall. Hong Lian and Jian Chen's battles were very intense. The surroundings were filled with flames and crisscrossed by sword qi. Terrifying ripples of energy surged out as shockwaves, causing the space to violently tremble and mountains to collapse. Even the floating piece of land in the distance shook, as if an earthquake had occurred. The commotion from Yu Yu's battle was far smaller on the other hand. Yu Yu stood at the entrance of the divine hall with the moon god's scepter in her hands. A hazy layer of moonlight fell from the door sill and protected her. Her opponent, Changyang Yuan Zhenghua, knew that the fragile-looking girl right before him possessed unimaginable strength and that she could even heavily injure Changyang Qingyun. As a result, he dared not to get too close and instead sent powerful strands of sword qi toward her from afar. However, the sword qi would shatter as soon as they came in contact with the moonlight in front of her. The sword qi could not even shake the thin-looking barrier. Yu Yu stood silently at the entrance as she looked in the direction of Jian Chen. She did not pay any attention to Changyang Yuan Zhenghua, who constantly tried to harm her using his sword qi. Changyang Yuan Zhenghua was pale while his face darkened more and more. He was a great elder of the Changyang clan and a powerful saint king, yet he was being ignored by a girl he could completely look down upon. At the same time, his sword qi could not harm her at all, which filled him with anger. He used everything he had, yet he could not do anything to her. The saint rulers who did not participate in the battle used a secret technique to close the world gate in attempt to trap them inside. The huge world gate slowly began to close, but the moment it started to close, the bright moon divine hall began to fly toward it. It lodged itself in the world gate, preventing it from closing. The saint rulers' expressions at the back all changed. The Bright Moon Divine Hall was extremely tough. Although the World Gate possessed a very great power when closing, it could do nothing to the Bright Moon Divine Hall. At that moment, everything that could happen between the World Gate and the Divine Hall happened. The World Gate could not be closed and the Bright Moon Divine Hall could not be moved. Awaken the Emperor Armament, an older saint ruler instructed before leading a few saint rulers toward the Forbidden Grounds. Jian Shen and Hong Lian were embroiled in extremely tough battles between the four great elders. Every time they clashed, devastating power would be created, causing the entire miniature world to violently tremble. Pitch-black cracks appeared in space-time and time again, showing signs of collapsing. The figures of 18 divine halls appeared in the sky, holding the place firm and causing the space of the realm to rapidly stabilize. CSG now has a Patreon set up, where you can read up to 35 chapters ahead. Chapter 1194, Sealing the Changyang Clan. 3. Several saint rulers sat around the Emperor Armament in the Forbidden Grounds of the Changyang clan. All of their eyes were closed, and they had formed hand seals, currently using a secret technique to awaken the Emperor Armament. The battle in the distance became more and more intense as terrifying ripples of energy wreaked havoc in the realm as shockwaves, where even the Forbidden Grounds were slightly affected. However, the shockwaves were not enough to stop their determined minds. They were going to awaken the Emperor Armament. As they all spat a cloud of essence blood onto the Emperor Armament, the weapon began to gently tremble, which became more intense over time. A layer of bright light surrounded the 30-meter-long Emperor Armament as it was slowly drawn from the ground, shooting to the sky. Suddenly, an extremely vast sword chi began to radiate from the Emperor Armament. It was enough to disturb the world and was basically unmatched. The commotion was so great that even saint kings at great perfection could not match up to it. The saint rulers who awakened the Emperor Armament were all pale white now. They all collapsed powerlessly on the ground, as if they had used up everything they had. However, they all smiled in success. They maintained complete confidence in the Emperor Armament. They thought that as soon as it was mobilized, there was nothing in the world that could stop their protector clan. The Emperor Armament shot through the sky, and without anyone's control, it charged toward Hong Lian as a streak of light. As soon as the Emperor Armament was awakened in a protector clan, it would automatically attack all targets that were hostile. Although it was not as powerful as when it was controlled, its power could not be underestimated either. Hong Lian handled the violent attacks from Changyang Qingyun and Changyang Yuan Wuji with ease. She did not become flustered at all when she saw the incoming Emperor Armament. With a flip of her hand, 3 tiny thumb-sized, flame-red sculptures of phoenixes appeared. She gently tossed the sculptures into the air and the 3 sculptures immediately began to burn with roaring flames. They turned into 10-meter-long phoenixes with intangible bodies that were condensed from flames. The 3 phoenixes opened their wings and charged toward Changyang Yuan Wuji under Hong Lian's control. Shortly afterward, another 5 bright red feathers appeared in Hong Lian's hand. They shone with a blood-like color. They were not true phoenix feathers, but crafted from special materials by her. The 5 feathers flew from her hand and turned into 5 streaks of scarlet flames. As they flew, they rapidly expanded, becoming several dozen meters in length in the end. A layer of roaring flames covered them. They surrounded Changyang Qingyun in a formation that seemed simple but contained the mysteries of the world. As the formation pulsed, the space inside quickly blurred and Changyang Qingyun disappeared as well. He had been sucked away by the formation space. The 5 feathers of the formation shook violently as sparks flew off of them. Changyang Qingyun was currently doing everything he could to break out, but the formation was one of the most powerful formations in the Scorching Divine Phoenix clan. Although it was nowhere near its full strength due to a lack of materials, it was enough to trap Changyang Qingyun for some time. The Emperor Armament shot over with an unstoppable force. Having broken away from Changyang Yuan Zhenghua and Changyang Qingyun, Hong Lian also drew her Scorching God Fire hairpin to face the attacks of the Emperor Armament. The hairpin possessed the vague presence of origin energy. Wrapped under a layer of scorching white flames, it collided with the Emperor Armament. With a deafening boom, an extremely powerful shockwave erupted, creating a storm of destruction. The mountain ranges in a radius of 10 kilometers instantly collapsed, reduced to falling rocks and dust in the air. The mountain ranges beyond the collapsed range also began to collapse part by part. The space violently shook and twisted very much. Streaks of pitch-black cracks appeared in space like huge, dark mouths of vicious ghosts, devouring everything that got too close to them. The 18 divine halls in the sky had completely consolidated their physical forms. Every single divine hall was shining with an eternal glow as a vast, powerful, and mysterious energy surged out from them, fusing with the surrounding space to stabilize it. The single clash between the origin energy weapon and the Emperor armament was equivalent to the clash between two Saint Emperors. If the space had not been protected by the 18 divine halls, it probably would have collapsed already. On the other side, Jian Chen fought an intense battle against two great elders as well. At the same time, he paid attention to the wild fight that involved Hong Lian. Out of his opponents, Changyang Qing Juri was the weakest, so he had become Jian Chen's primary target of attack. In just a bit of fighting, several slashes had appeared on him which dyed his luxurious white robes red. If it were not for the fact that Changyang Qing Yunfeng kept Jian Chen busy at crucial moments, Changyang Qing Juri would have been even more heavily injured. Enter the 18 divine halls and activate the encirclement, an ancient, heavy voice boomed from behind. Immediately, 18 saint rulers took to the sky, flying toward the 18 divine halls. The moment the 18 experts entered the structures, life seemed to have been breathed into the 18 divine halls. They possessed some sort of intelligence and began to move. All 18 divine halls stacked together and slowly fell toward Hong Lian's head. Hong Lian's expression changed. She raised her head as she glared at the divine halls that slowly fell down, and she finally became stern. This was because she had suddenly discovered she could not move at all. As the 18 divine halls fell from above, a curse seemed to have been planted on her. She could not move or break free no matter how hard she tried. This is spatial force. The wonders it contains far exceeds the comprehension of a regular Saint Emperor. It's something that only a peak Saint Emperor or someone that surpassed Saint Emperor can control. Even if a regular Saint Emperor gets trapped by this, they probably won't be able to break free in a short amount of time. Hong Lian was extremely stern. Hong Lian was trapped and immobilized. As the 18 divine halls grew closer and closer to her, even the energy within her was affected. It became rather difficult to control. Boom! With a loud sound, the Emperor armament struck her body while she was immobilized. It immediately caused her origin energy armor to spray out scorching white flames in order to fend off the attack. Hong Lian would have been blown away long ago if she had received such a powerful attack on any other day, but she was currently trapped. She could not move at all, and with nowhere to redirect the terrifying force of the Emperor armament, she became even more injured. Some paleness appeared on her face. Although she was protected by her armor and the Emperor armament could not break through it, the powerful force was still enough to shake up her organs. Ha ha ha, Phoenix, do you really think that no one can stop you in our Protector clan space just because you have the 2 origin energy treasures? Let me tell you, the encirclement of the 18 halls of the Protector clans can trap Saint Emperors. Even if Saint Emperors want to break free, it'll take 4 hours. You probably won't even be able to break free even after a whole day since your strength is below a Saint Emperor, Changyang Yuan Zhenghua loudly chuckled. He could not help but cease his useless actions of attacking the Bright Moon Divine Hall. CSG now has a Patreon set up, where you can read up to 35 chapters ahead. Chapter 1195, Sealing the Changyang Clan, 4. Hong Lian struggled with difficulty. The roaring flames around her had already turned white, but everything was useless no matter how hard she tried. She could not break free from the invisible force around her. The encirclement of the 18 halls could even trap Saint Emperors for 4 whole hours. Although Hong Lian possessed the power to face against Saint Emperors with her origin energy treasures, she was still a Saint King at great perfection. Her comprehension of the mysteries of the world were nowhere near a Saint Emperor's level, so she could do nothing against the trap. A sword chi surged forward from ahead again. The Emperor armament had turned into a resplendent streak of light, attacking Hong Lian again. It was as fast as a bolt of lightning. Gleams of light flickered through Hong Lian's eyes. She was trapped, but her mind was not affected. She controlled the scorching godfire hairpin with her mind to receive the Emperor armament, blocking it 100 meters away. The great force knocked both weapons away. Swish! Under Hong Lian's control, the hairpin immediately forsook the Emperor armament and shot toward the 18 divine halls in the air with a sharp whistle and white flames. The space below the divine halls rippled like water. The hairpin could no longer advance any further after reaching a spot 10 meters away from the divine halls. Hong Lian's mind was connected to the hairpin, so she could feel everything even clearer. She felt like the hairpin had struck a soft, elastic mattress, and the hairpin could not penetrate this mattress no matter how much force she used. Hong Lian shivered inside. She looked at the divine halls as the light in her eyes flickered, and she heavily said, "This is another usage of spatial force. I never thought that 18 divine halls stacked together would create such a profound use. Probably even the human and magical beast Saint Emperors haven't grasped this usage." Hong Lian gained a completely new understanding regarding the heritage of the 10 protector clans. For the protector clans to stand on the Tianyuan continent and survive for 1,000,000 years, they obviously excelled in certain areas. Their heritage was so powerful that it was enough to deal with Saint Emperors. Yu Yu also became flustered when she saw Hong Lian facing trouble. Pure moonlight force began to condense on the scepter in her hand. She wanted to use all the energy within to help Hong Lian. "My dear disciple, don't get flustered. The armor on her possesses origin energy. Its defense is very powerful, so nothing will happen to her anytime soon. Meanwhile, the energy within the scepter will only decrease when you use it. Don't waste it like this." Fairy Hao Yu's pleasant voice rang in Yu Yu's head and the moonlight force on the scepter quickly faded away. Fairy Hao Yu had already secretly taken control of it. "But Master, Senior Hong Lian's already injured. If this continues, it'll probably only be even more detrimental to Senior Hong Lian," Yu Yu said in deep worry. Although her friendship with Hong Lian was not particularly deep, she had helped Jian Chen overcome many problems in the past. This was why Yu Yu always felt grateful toward Hong Lian. Her original form is a magical beast and no ordinary magical beast either. No human can match up against the toughness of her body, so these injuries won't be a problem to her. "My disciple, just watch from here. It'll be helpful for your future cultivation. If she really does face danger, someone will obviously interfere," Fairy Hao Yu replied calmly and coldly. Hong Lian had been firmly trapped by the encirclement of the 18 halls, but unfortunately, the divine halls did not possess any offensive capabilities even though they could trap Saint Emperors. Seeing how her hairpin was useless, Hong Lian immediately gave up on the idea of forcefully breaking out. She focused on using the hairpin to handle the attacks from the Emperor armament. A violent ripple of energy appeared nearby. Changyang Qingyun had already broken out of the formation trapping him. He was in a rather horrible condition. His silver-white hair curled slightly from the flames while his snow-white robes had darkened as well. He was utterly furious and pale white. Glancing around sharply, he immediately found the trapped Hong Lian. Roaring, he quickly charged toward her. A pressure that originated from the surrounding space pushed down. Changyang Qingyun could use Saint-Tier battle skills at will and did not need to charge up at all. Devastating energy rapidly gathered in his palm as he viciously swung it toward Hong Lian's back. Bang! With an explosive sound, Hong Lian's hairpin blocked the attack from the Emperor armament. Since she was trapped, she was unable to avoid Changyang Qingyun's Saint-Tier battle skill at all, so she took a solid blow from that. Her body shook, but she remained stuck where she was. Changyang Qingyun rapidly retreated from the terrifying ripples of energy. "You're dreaming if you want to injure me," Hong Lian sneered. Changyang Qingyun heard her taunt clearly. A saint-tier battle skill from him as a saint king at great perfection was not enough to harm Hong Lian, who was protected by the 9 refined godfire feathermail. Changyang Qing Yun's face darkened. He was the strongest in the protector Changyang clan. His status was absolute, yet Hong Lian had just taunted him like that. It was extremely shameful to him. Changyang Qing Yun furiously roared out. He dissipated the 3 phoenixes currently tangled with Changyang Yuan Wuji, freeing him. Then he aggressively charged toward Jian Chen. Ice-cold killing intent flickered in his eyes. At this moment, Jian Chen just happened to impale Changyang Qing Juri. Blood dripped from the tip of his sword as a strand of destructive chaotic force invaded Changyang Qing Juri's body. Like a wild horse on the loose, it rampaged through Changyang Qing Juri's body, attempting to extinguish any signs of life. Changyang Qing Juri became pale white at that moment. A great mouthful of blood sprayed into the air as mist while he suffered almost fatal damage. Jian Chen immediately pulled out the Emperor armament and used the illusory flash. He left behind an afterimage and began to retreat with lightning-like speed. He entered the Bright Moon Divine Hall in the blink of an eye. He was confident, but he did not believe he was Changyang Qing Yun's opponent. Both Jian Chen's reactions and movements were extremely fast and not sloppy. Changyang Qing Yun could only watch as Jian Chen entered the Divine Hall. Even though his hatred for Jian Chen gnawed at his own heart, he could do nothing to the Divine Hall. Juri, head back to the Ancestral Hall immediately to heal. Yunfeng, Wuji, will control the Emperor armament together, Changyang Qing Yun coldly commanded. Determination filled Changyang Qing Yunfeng and Changyang Yuan Wuji's faces. Even though they would suffer an even more severe backlash if they controlled the Emperor armament with just the 3 of them, they had no other choice due to the current situation. CSG now has a Patreon set up, where you can read up to 35 chapters ahead. Chapter 1196, A Divine Melody from the Void. Changyang Qing Yun and the other 2 arrived above the huge hilt of the Emperor armament together. They grabbed the hilt with their hands. Their hands were covered in a layer of surging saint force while more saint force surged out of them like a river, pouring endlessly into the Emperor armament. The Emperor armament immediately began to shine bright after receiving the saint force from 3 saint kings. Its sword chi became even sharper, and even the space that had been reinforced by the 18 divine halls gently trembled. Its power had increased. Although the Emperor armament could display great might when no one controlled it, it was nowhere near the power it displayed when it was controlled. Hong Lian stared sternly at the rapidly strengthening Emperor armament. The scorching godfire hairpin had already returned to her hand. She was pouring endless amounts of pure flames and power into the origin energy weapon. Now that she was trapped, she was like a sitting duck. Hong Lian felt rather pressured since she had to face against the Emperor armament in such a shape. Jian Chen and Yu Yu stood beside each other at the entrance of the Bright Boom Divine Hall. A pure light screen fell from the door sill, creating a natural chasm that separated the 2 of them from the outside world. The screen seemed thin and fragile, but the energy hidden within was unbelievably powerful. Even the Emperor armament would struggle to break through it. Jian Chen tightly clenched his fists. He worried about Hong Lian. He had no doubts regarding her strength at all, but she probably would be unable to use everything she had to face off against the Emperor armament now that she was stuck like this. It had already become a battle between Hong Lian and the Emperor armament now. Jian Chen could no longer interfere. He did not have the protection of origin energy armor, so he could not even withstand a single blow from the Emperor armament. Even if he released Tai Ta from the artifact space, it would be completely useless. Meanwhile, the Bright Moon Divine Hall remained lodged in the World Gate to stop it from closing. It could not move, so obviously it could not assist Hong Lian either. Boom! With a deafening sound, the scorching godfire hairpin collided with the Emperor armament under the 3 Great Elders' control. Destructive ripples of energy erupted, causing the imposing mountains even further away to loudly collapse. The floating land became covered in cracks and the entire miniature world suffered a destructive blow. The hairpin was knocked away with its white flames while the emperor armament was knocked back by several hundred meters as well. Hong Lian trembled and her face became pale. Under the control of the three great elders, the emperor armament had indeed powered up by a lot. It had surpassed the level of regular Saint Emperors while she was still trapped by the encirclement of the 18 halls right now. Not only was she completely immobilized, she could only use 80% of her total strength, making it rather difficult to block the Emperor armament. They will suffer a backlash from controlling the Emperor armament. I only need to keep them busy. They obviously won't be able to endure it once too much time has passed, Hong Lian thought to herself before pouring all her strength into controlling the hairpin to block the attacks from the Emperor armament. In the blink of an eye, the hairpin had clashed with the Emperor armament over 10 times. During this period of time, the Emperor armament managed to strike Hong Lian several times. It was unable to break through her armor, but the powerful force still ruptured her organs, forcing blood to leak from the corner of her mouth. The origin energy treasures are far too strong. If this continues, we'll pass away from the backlash before we can even break through the armor, Changyang Qin Yunfeng revealed his thoughts. He was extremely stern. We can't continue like this, or it'll only be detrimental to us. The Emperor armament will begin its backlash without long, Changyang Yuan Wuji also said in panic. The Emperor armament was very powerful, but they could not control it for too long. Changyang Qin Yun understood this as well. He became uneasy. If they did not chase out the intruders today, the Protector clan would lose all their dignity. However, what made it unendurable for him was that the disaster today was all brought on by Jian Chen. The saint's fruit must be with Jian Chen. He would never give something so valuable to someone else. We definitely can't let him leave today since he's brought on such a great disaster to the clan. He has to die here, Changyang Qin Yun calculated inside and very quickly made up his mind. He said with a sunken face, "Activate the origin formation." What? The origin formation? Changyang Qin Yunfeng was shocked. It's already been several tens of thousand years since we've used the origin formation. Although the records say that the origin formation possesses limitless power and that it can even slay peak saint emperors, the consumption for each activation is just far too great. It will drain all the energy of this miniature world, Changyang Yuan Wuji said with a rather pale face. The opponent before us is even harder to deal with than regular saint emperors. Other than the origin formation, we don't have anything else that can threaten her, and once she breaks free from the encirclement, who is still her opponent? Changyang Qin Yun said. Changyang Qin Yunfeng and Changyang Yuan Wuji looked at each other and nodded in unison. Immediately, they relinquished control of the Emperor armament and got it to attack Hong Lian automatically. Meanwhile, the three of them levitated into the air as they maintained a similar hand seal. There was a process to activating the origin energy. It needed to use their energy as a medium. If the three of them worked together, they could lessen the activation time by quite a lot. Over half a minute later, the entire miniature world began to gently tremble. The dense energy that permeated the space of the realm vanished at an unbelievable rate as a faint streak of golden light appeared in the air. The streak of light was like a golden piece of string, forming a huge and complicated image that filled the entire space. The origin formation was one of the greatest trump cards of the Changyang clan. The entire formation was hidden in the void, and it would only appear when it was activated. As soon as the origin formation materialized, it rapidly began to absorb energy of the world, allowing its golden light to become bright and brighter, more and more dazzling. The origin formation was extremely large. From afar, it seemed like a humongous spider web. As the golden streaks of light intertwined with each other, they connected 360 crucial points together, and they all were connected to the hexagram at the very center. "I'll maintain the encirclement of the 18 halls," a clear voice rang out. Changyang Yuan Zhenghua stood on the divine hall at the top and 18 stone tablets circled around him. Through the stone tablets, he could control the 18 divine halls. Changyang Qin Yun, Changyang Qin Yunfeng, and Changyang Yuan Wuji all looked at Changyang Yuan Zhenghua with determination before flying into the central hexagram in unison. This was the control center of the formation. The origin formation began to slowly revolve. An extremely terrifying presence immediately began to permeate the surroundings along with an extremely powerful force of destruction. It seemed to be enough to ruin the entire space, enough to create dread. Hong Lian's expression drastically changed. The origin formation was actually several times more terrifying than the most powerful killing formations recorded in her inherited memories, which deeply shocked her. Fairy Hao Yu sat with her eyes closed on a piece of jade in the sealed room at the very top of the Bright Moon Divine Hall. Even though she was illusionary, her enchanting beauty could be clearly seen. It bore cold pride. Suddenly, she snapped open her eyes. Her gaze seemed to be able to pierce the Divine Hall, allowing her to see the outside clearly. This is the origin formation. Weird, how can the origin formation appear here? This is not something that belongs to this world. She was extremely surprised. One of the 4 great protectors of the Ice Goddess Hall, Shui Junlan, just happens to be in this world. Is this origin formation from her? Fairy Hao Yu murmured. The origin formation was only a low-level formation in her eyes, but she needed to deeply ponder why it could appear here. At the same time, Gue Haidao, who sat on the hilt of the wave-breaking blade, snapped open his eyes in the forbidden grounds of the Tyrant's Blade School. His eyes were as profound as the vast starry sky, and they seemed to be able to traverse the distance to see what was happening in the Changyang clan. The Changyang clan has actually used the origin formation. However, that magical beast has the feather mail and a weapon forged with origin energy of unknown origins. Regular Saint Emperors can't do anything to her. If the Changyang clan doesn't use the origin formation, it's true that they can't do anything to her, Gue Haidao mumbled to himself. Even though he was extremely far away, he could see everything clearly. The righteous Yang sword has already accumulated an extremely great amount of energy. There's quite some more in it compared to my wave-breaking blade. Looks like there has been even more Saint Emperors that have appeared in the Changyang clan in the past. Yang Lai, I wonder when you will return. Gue Haidao was melancholy as reminiscence filled his eyes. We need the support of 360 people to activate the origin formation. All Heaven Saint Masters and above enter the crucial points of the formation. Changyang Qin Yun's loud but dignified voice rang through the entire miniature world. Immediately, a group of Heaven Saint Masters and Saint Rulers flew toward the 360 crucial points. Once they occupied the crucial points, the terrifying energy of the origin formation would be able to fully displayed. We need to stop them, Jian Chen shivered inside and immediately flew out of the Bright Moon Divine Hall. He charged toward the people as quickly as he could as killing intent sprouted from him. At that moment, Jian Chen had already raised his killing intent toward the clansmen at Heaven Saint Master. He could not allow them to enter the crucial points no matter what. At this moment, a zither melody suddenly drifted out. It was gentle and pleasant, like an immortal's performance. It was not loud, but it bloated out all the messy cries and calls in the clan. Every single person heard it clearly. It was impossible to distinguish the origins of the gentle music, so no one knew where it came from, let alone see where the person behind it was hiding. However, when anyone heard the intoxicating music, their expression immediately changed. This included Changyang Qin Yun and the other Saint Kings of the Changyang clan. All of them felt like they had suddenly become sleepy, as if the beautiful music numbed them and made them feel like they wanted to fall asleep immediately. CSG now has a Patreon set up, where you can read up to 35 chapters ahead. Chapter 1197, The Heavens Incense School, 1, Shit, this is an attack of the soul. Everyone gather your focus and avoid listening to it. Changyang Qin Yun understood what was happening very quickly. He immediately roared in a deafening fashion in attempt to use his voice to suppress the music and awaken the clansmen that were affected. However, his roar did not influence them at all. Only a few stronger Saint Rulers resisted with all they had, while the weaker Saint Rulers, Heaven Saint Masters, and weaker clansmen were all affected. Their eyes blurred as they became drowsy. A large portion of them had already collapsed on the ground already. The heavenly enchantress. Jian Shen turned his head in delight. Although he could not see her, he had already guessed who was creating the unique music. The wondrous effects of the music became more and more evident. Gradually, a few heaven saint masters gave in and collapsed on the floor, followed by a few saint rulers. They all fell asleep. In the blink of an eye, all the people at the 360 crucial points had fallen asleep. Even the great power of the origin formation could no longer be upheld without the support of 360 people. Changyang Qing Yun and the others became pale white. They all clenched their teeth and trembled all over. Their hatred for the heavenly enchantress had already reached an irreversible point. They were just about to successfully activate the origin formation and kill off all the intruders, which would not only allow them to remove Jian Shen as a future problem, but also allow them to obtain the saint's fruit, yet someone just had to ruin everything at that moment. They were so furious that they wanted to spit blood. The music did not stop. Instead, the charm hidden within rapidly strengthened where even the most powerful saint rulers could not resist it in the end. They all fell with a plop. There was no longer anyone standing on the floating piece of land. Only the Saint Kings were able to resist in the huge clan as well as Yu Yu who hid in the bright moon divine hall. The zither music could not penetrate the thin light screen at the main entrance. At this moment, the encirclement of the 18 halls collapsed. All 18 saint rulers hidden inside rolled out and fell to the floor like rocks. Their eyes were closed, and they were asleep as well. Changyang Yuanzhenghua, who stood on the top divine hall, became stunned by this as disbelief filled his face. Meanwhile, the 18 stone tablets continued to circle around him. He could control the divine halls through the stone tablets, but he could not activate the encirclement since it needed a saint ruler in each divine hall. How did it end up like this? Changyang Yuanzhenghua blankly asked. Just a single tune had reduced such a great protector clan to this miserable state. This was something he could not accept. The Changyang clan was a great protector clan, one of 10 most powerful clans on the Tian Yuan continent. They possessed several saint kings, several dozen saint rulers, and countless heaven saint masters, yet such a powerful lineup had actually collapsed before a tune. No matter how deep their clan's heritage was, no matter how many powerful trump cards they possessed, it would all be useless before this tune. This was because they had nothing to fend off attacks directed at the soul, and the music could pierce through all obstructions and even penetrate into the center of mountains. It would not be enough even if they covered their ears. In the blink of an eye, the situation had been reversed by zither music that appeared out of nowhere. The Changyang clan that possessed the advantage and was about to be victorious was directed toward a path of defeat. The huge origin formation hovering in the sky also vanished. Without the support of 360 people, it was unable to display its great might. If it continued to be active, it would only drain the energy of the miniature world. What's happened outside? Yu Yu stared blankly from the bright moon divine hall as confusion filled her inside. The light screen of moonlight force had blocked all of the music, so she did not hear it. Thus, she naturally had no idea just what had happened outside. All she saw was large swathes of people collapsing. Hong Lian recovered her freedom. Flames immediately began to roar around her as a large ball of flames enveloped her. Her figure was obscured by the fire. She seemed like a goddess of fire. Her wounds also rapidly healed. Hong Lian arrived in front of Changyang Qingyun and the 3 other Saint Kings as flames scorched around her. She glared icily at them and coldly taunted, "I'd like to see just what methods you have left to match up against me." The 4 great elders had already become deep red. As great elders of a lofty protector clan, they had actually been embarrassed by their enemies in such a fashion in their own territory. This was a vicious slap to their faces, but they could not find anything to say. Now, the only thing they could do that could pose some threat to Hong Lian was use the Emperor armament. However, with just the 4 of them, they would not be able to emerge victorious in a short amount of time even if they controlled the Emperor armament. Once too much time passed, they would not be able to endure the backlash. They might even end up dying from it. If we could use all the power of the Emperor armament, there would be only death for you even with the protection of your origin energy armor. Changyang Yuan Jinghua finally managed to squeeze some words out after holding them in for a very long time. The protector clans were proud. Their dignity could not be degraded. Changyang Yuan Jinghua did not want to accept the fact that his own clan had suffered a defeat to a saint king. With a cold glare, Changyang Qingyun stared at Hong Lian, who bathed in the scorching flames. He sneered, "I really do wonder what overwhelming benefits Jian Chen has provided you two with for a prideful member of the Divine Phoenix clan and a king of the Dragon clan to forsake their dignity and serve him time after time, being reduced to that fledgling brat servant." Changyang Qingyun's tone possessed naked provocation. Hong Lian's eyes grew cold, but at that moment, both her and Jian Chen's expression changed at the same time. They had received a message from Rui Jin. His secret technique was about to be completed, and they needed to retreat immediately, or they would be sealed in the miniature world as well. Without any hesitation, Hong Lian and Jian Chen returned to the Bright Moon Divine Hall as quickly as possible. The Divine Hall immediately left the miniature world, and without the structure's obstruction, the world gate quickly closed up. Just when it was about to close up completely, Changyang Qingyun hurriedly charged over. He knew that Rui Jin and the others wanted to seal the Changyang clan. Another red feather crafted from special materials appeared in Hong Lian's hand. The energy of flames surged within. Swish! The feather shot through the world gate that was only 2 meters wide now as a red streak of light before loudly exploding. It blocked Changyang Qingyun. Just as its sparks were about to spray into the outside world, the world gate closed completely. Siege of the 9 Dragons, seal. At the same time, Rui Jin explosively yelled out. 9 huge dragons charged out of the 9 stalks of dragon saliva. They were all 100 meters long and ethereal in form. They were condensed from the vast amount of vitality within the grasses. The 9 illusionary dragons produced a soundless roar at the sky. They swam through the air before colliding in the end. Their 9 huge bodies actually condensed into a head-sized dragon orb in the end. This orb glowed with resplendent light before slowly disappearing, sealing up this region of space. Rui Jin deeply exhaled as a slight bit of exhaustion appeared on his face. Clearly, casting the seal on the Changyang clan took quite the effort. It's finally complete. As long as the dragon orb's power does not dissipate, no one can exit the miniature world of the Changyang clan, Rui Jin said with a sense of relief. Jian Chen and Hong Lian arrived in front of him. Jian Chen said, "Senior Rui Jin, around how long can this seal be maintained?" Rui Jin pondered silently and answered, "The energy of the orb is limited and cannot be replenished. Under ordinary circumstances, it can last for 100 years, but there'll definitely be people in there striking it with all they have to break through. That'll increase the consumption rate, so I am unsure how long the seal can last. However, it can last a few years at the very least, possibly even longer." Senior Rui Jin, can you keep them trapped if you cast the same seal after this seal has been broken through? Yu asked as she put the Bright Moon Divine Hall away and stood beside Jian Chen. Rui Jin shook his head, "You don't know this, but the 9 stalks of dragon saliva I have brought to seal up the Changyang clan were all left behind by my seniors who had reached Saint Emperor. Only a single stalk will be left behind with the death of each dragon. My clan vanished far too long, so there were only around a dozen left in the necropolis. I've used 9 this time, so there's not enough for the same secret technique now." Jian Chen and Yu both became disappointed. They understood that once the dragon orb's power ran out, it would be the day when Tai Ta's identity would be broadcast across the Tian Yuan continent and the Beast God continent. It would also be when they would face the speedy revenge of the Changyang clan. Although they only needed to kill all the people in the Changyang clan to keep Tai Ta's identity a permanent secret, this was clearly not feasible. Jian Chen looked around and expanded his presence at the same time in attempt to find signs of the heavenly enchantress. However, the results were disappointing. He did not discover the heavenly enchantress after extending his presence to the limit. Ruo Jin could tell that Jian Chen was looking for something with a single glance. He chuckled, "You can stop looking. That girl's already left, but she's becoming more and more skillful. Even I had no idea she had come, and I could not find signs of her when she played the zither either. Only when she left did I find where she was hiding." CSG now has a Patreon set up, where you can read up to 35 chapters ahead. Chapter 1198, The Heavens Incense School, 2. Jian Chen could not help but feel surprised inside with what Ruo Jin had said. He knew that the heavenly enchantress' strength had skyrocketed at an unbelievable rate in recent years and that she was already extremely powerful, so powerful, in fact, that her strength was unfathomable. However, never did he think that the heavenly enchantress would still be able to move about elusively right before a king of the dragon clan that was at great perfection of Saint King. This greatly exceeded anything Jian Chen had expected. Has the heavenly enchantress' strength rapidly increased lately because she gave birth to a child with the innate chaotic body? Jian Chen thought inside as the words of the sword spirits rang through his head again. The mother of a child in possession of the innate chaotic body would be blessed by the heavens and possess infinite potential. A strange light flickered through Yu Yu's eyes. She did not hear the music before since she was in the Bright Moon Divine Hall, but she had already guessed what had happened from Ruo Jin and Jian Chen's conversation. She arrived beside Jian Chen and gently hugged his arm. She did not show any displeasure at all. She was just very curious. She softly asked, "Jian Chen, who was the person who secretly assisted us? How is she so powerful that even Senior Ruo Jin could not sense her whereabouts?" Jian Chen slightly hesitated. He turned to Yu Yu and said, "Yuer, she calls herself the Heavenly Enchantress while others call her the Saintess of the Zither. If she did not help out earlier and prevent the Changyang clan from completing the origin formation, we probably would have been in quite some trouble." Jian Chen paused. However, before Yu Yu could follow up with another question, he continued, "Now that the problem with the Changyang clan has been dealt with, let's immediately go to the Heavens Incense School. Senior He Yu is heavily poisoned and his life is in danger at all times. We need to obtain the antidote as soon as possible." Ruo Jin and Hong Lian became stern as soon as Jian Chen mentioned the problem regarding He Yu. They knew very well just how powerful the poison in He Yu was, especially since it could not be purged even with the origin energy of Radiant Saint Force. If they could not obtain the antidote, He Yu would probably end up in the afterlife even as a Saint King at great perfection. They had learned the location of the Heavens Incense School long ago from Changyang Zhu Yunshao, so Ruo Jin created a space gate and delivered everyone to an area several million kilometers away. The Heavens Incense School was a rather different existence compared to the other protector clans. They were known for their poisons. Within the clan, the most common and most powerful methods of attack were not devastating Saint-tier battle skills but unparalleled poisons. At the same time, the cultivation method they used was special as well. Their vast Saint force would be choke full of extremely potent poisons, and their abilities to utilize poison had reached a high level of mastery long ago. No one could match up against them in terms of the usage of poison even with the entire continent in perspective. There were all kinds of strange methods in regard to poisoning in the Heavens Incense School. They possessed almost all the methods possible, and most of the time, it would be impossible to sense their methods, able to poison the target soundlessly. Some of their potent poisons could even threaten Saint Kings. Before them were boundless plains of grass. Various weeds grew 3 to 4 meters long. Their branches were supple and were teeming with life force. The misty layer of clouds had descended to an altitude of 100 meters above the plains. No matter how hard the wind blew, the clouds never dispersed or even moved. With his arm around Yu Yu's waist, Jian Chen stood with Ruo Jin and Hong Lian 3 meters in the air. The tip of their feet rested on the blades of grass, so they seemed as light as a feather where even the fragile tips could withstand their body weight. Right ahead is the entrance to the miniature world of the Heavens Incense School. I can already vaguely sense the special spatial ripples of the world gate, Roy Jean calmly revealed as he looked ahead. All of them looked at the empty space up ahead. Other than a hazy swathe of green, they could not see anything else. At this moment, there was a faint green flash. The tip of the unknown plant beneath Jian Chen's feet suddenly split open and turned into a head-sized mouth. This mouth was filled with sharp spikes as a sticky fluid slowly revolved in it. This mouth bit toward Jian Chen's leg at an unbelievable speed. With a cracking sound similar to the destruction of a weapon, not only did the mouth fail to break through Jian Chen's skin, but its teeth were also crushed. The green liquid hit Jian Chen's leg and ate away his pants instantly. The sticky fluid was extremely poisonous and corrosive. Jian Chen seemed like he had yet to discover the abnormality. His eyes remained facing forward, but his leg that had been bitten gently shook, directly shredding the plant into pieces. Roy Jean and Hong Lian did not look at what had happened to Jian Chen either. Roy Jean mumbled, "These planes have been modified. They can stop a lot of people. It's probably because of the Heaven's Incense School." A sliver of fury flashed through Hong Lian's eyes. She said, "I can burn this entire place down to the ground with just a ball of fire." Hong Lian did not have a good opinion of the Heaven's Incense School because of what He Yu was going through. "I think I know this place. It's called the Oasis of Death. There aren't any magical beasts in it, only various weird plants, but virtually every single plant is fatal to people. Earth Saint Masters are unlikely to make it out alive if they enter, and even Heaven Saint Masters aren't able to fly past it. Heaven Saint Masters can only fly beneath the cloud layer, and since the clouds in the sky are so low, they can't surpass a height of 100 meters. Meanwhile, there are many plants in the Oasis of Death that can extend their tough tendrils to that altitude and trap the Heavenly Saint Masters before sucking them dry, Jian Chen explained with a heavy tone. Looks like this Oasis of Death has claimed quite a few lives. If this was all natural, then so be it, but the Heaven's Incense School needed to make it. They're a great protector clan, yet they've made such a vicious zone of danger to harm people. The Heaven's Incense School doesn't seem to be anything good to me. Let me do a good deed, Hong Lian coldly replied. A scarlet flame surged from her body before expanding out in the form of a flame wheel with her at the center. This was no ordinary fire. Although it was only a casual action from Hong Lian, its power could not be underestimated. Wherever the fire passed, all the green vegetation would be reduced to ash, and even the spongy soil was turned into tough rock. All the roots beneath the ground shriveled from death. The fire expanded to 5 kilometers before slowly dispersing. At that moment, the surroundings had opened up around them. The ground was charred black and a burnt smell lingered in the air. 5 kilometers away, flames and smoke surged into the air. The terrifyingly hot wheel of flames had already disappeared, but it had set the vegetation in the distance alight. The fire was slowly spreading through the entire area in an unstoppable fashion, and wherever it passed, it would burn the ground to a crisp and fill the air with smoke. Suddenly, the space in front of them began to pulse. A 2-meter-wide space gate suddenly appeared and a small, black-robed, bald, old man emerged. He was furious. "How dare you? Who was it who set this place on fire? What? This is outrageous. The oasis that we nurtured after so much effort has actually been burned to a crisp. Who did it? Stand forward for me. Even if I take your head, it won't be enough to make up for the mistake you just committed." The old man immediately swore furiously when he saw just how much of the place had been burned down. He placed all his attention on the burning landscape and had not discovered Jian Chen's group. "The fire's obviously from us. Your Heaven's Incense School may be a protector clan, but you're probably still not enough to take our heads," mocked Jian Chen. "Who's so reckless to challenge the dignity of the Heaven's Incense School? Don't you know that the Heaven's Incense School is..." The old man became even more enraged, but he bit his tongue just as he got through half of what he was saying. As if a bucket of cold water had been poured on him, all his anger vanished instantaneously. He stared at Jian Chen, Roy Jean, and Hong Lian with a pale face. At that moment, he finally recognized just who they were. The old man reacted fast, vanishing with a swish. The world gate also closed up as quickly as possible. The old man seemed to have lost all his power back inside the miniature world. He lay powerlessly on the ground as beads of sweat covered his forehead. He breathed heavily as deep dread lingered in his eyes even though he was a saint ruler. Why would it be them? And they've burned down our oasis as soon as they've come, so they haven't come with good intentions. We're done for. It'll be troublesome now, the old man said with a trembling voice. He was filled with fear. He was fortunate enough to witness Ruo Jin and Hong Lian battle against saint emperors in the past, and it had become an unerasable imprint in his life. As a result, he was extremely terrified of Ruo Jin and Hong Lian. I better report this to the schoolmaster as soon as possible. Suppressing his fear, the bald old man quickly flew toward the depths of the miniature world. The world gate opened once again very soon, but this time, it was not 2 meters across but 100 meters across. The world gate was now fully open. CSG now has a Patreon set up, where you can read up to 35 chapters ahead. Chapter 1199, The Heavens Incense School, 3. The schoolmaster stood at the world gate with a group of experts behind him. He did not give off a sharp presence, nor did he seem displeasure or satisfied either. Instead, he bore an amicable smile and appeared approachable. He did not even glance at the oasis that had been burnt to a crisp. I am the schoolmaster of the Heavens Incense School, Legend, and I'd like to welcome you in place of the Heavens Incense School. If you don't mind, I'd like to invite you into our miniature world so that I can have the honor of hosting you, the schoolmaster said with a face full of smiles. He had actually lost the courage to fight as soon as he saw Jian Chen, Hong Lian, and Ruo Jin standing there as well as the bright moon divine hall levitating behind them. Our friends suffered against a sneak attack from the Heavens Incense School a few days ago. It's only been just a few short days, so why has the Heavens Incense School suddenly become so polite? Hong Lian sneered. She had already equipped the 9 refined Godfire feather mail and the scorching Godfire hairpin levitated above her head. She had already made preparations for battle. It's a misunderstanding, just a misunderstanding. It's all been a misunderstanding. The schoolmaster did not become angry. He replied apologetically, esteemed guests, the situation back then really was special. The temptation of the saint's fruit was just far too great, enough for many saint kings lose themselves. At the same time, we were pressured back then into doing this. We had no other choice either, so the Heavens Incense School would like to express our sincerest apology for what happened before. Ruo Jin, Hong Lian, and Jian Chen could not help but look at each other when they saw the schoolmaster apologize in such a lowly manner. They had tried to anticipate many things before they came to the Heavens Incense School, but never did they think that something like this would happen. Not only was the schoolmaster not mad at all after the oasis they had nurtured for countless years was burnt to a crisp by Hong Lian, they had even forsook their great statuses to apologize to them, which was rather unbelievable. After all, the Heavens Incense School was a protector clan of the continent. As one of the most powerful clans, they obviously had their pride. Ruo Jin stood with his hands crossed. He smiled deeply and gently said, I never thought that the schoolmaster of the Heavens Incense School would actually lower himself and apologize to us. This has really exceeded anything we expected. Jian Chen, it's best if you deal with this now. Hong Lian and I only handle battles. Jian Chen slightly nodded. The light in his eyes flickered as he stared at the group of people. After pondering a while, he said, Esteemed schoolmaster Legend, the experts of your Heavens Incense School used the poison of Heaven's End on Senior Heiyu, causing him to endure the torture of the poison. His life is in constant danger, so don't you think that it's just a little too funny that such a deep hatred would be resolved with just a few words? That is completely reasonable. In order to express our sincerity, we are willing to offer up the antidote of the poison and add in 5 Class 8 monster cores, 20 Class 7 monster cores, 100 Class 5 and 6 monster cores as an apology. I only hope that we can clean the slate between us, the schoolmaster replied in sincerity. He paused before continuing, of course, these monster cores are completely useful to you, my friend. However, I've heard that there is a powerful group of mercenaries below you. If you have these monster cores, I do believe the strength of your group will increase by quite a lot. Jian Shen was indeed interested. Class 7 and 8 monster cores were items on the continent that could only be found by luck, because almost all the magical beasts of that level gathered on the Beast God continent and in the depths of the Cross Mountains. It was very rare to come across Class 7 magical beasts other than those two places, let alone ones at Class 8. The Class 7 magical beasts in the Cross Mountains were protected by the Beast God continent as well. As long as they did not break any rules, even the experts of the Protector clans could not kill them easily, which was why Class 7 monster cores had basically become an object of only demand and no supply on the continent, while Class 8 monster cores had basically vanished completely. Jian Shen was delighted by how the schoolmaster took the initiative in attempt to resolve their enmities. After the battle against the Changyang clan, Jian Shen had basically gained a completely new understanding regarding the Protector clans. If they used everything they had, it would be impossible for Jian Shen's group to benefit much at all, so it was best if they did not offend them altogether. At the same time, his enmity with the Heaven's Incense School was nowhere as deep as his enmity with the Changyang clan. Jian Shen also needed the monster cores supplied by the Heaven's Incense School very much as well. Jian Shen fell silent before saying, cleaning the slate is not necessarily impossible, but you see, the price needs to be a little higher. Brother Jian Shen, may I ask how much you are looking for? Why don't you name a price and we can discuss further? Lejund was relieved inside. His Protector clan did not lack monster cores, so if the matter could be resolved peacefully, then so be it. Even as a Protector clan, he could not afford to offend experts like Rui Jin and Hong Lian. On the other hand, Jian Shen possessed the saint's fruit, so without long, a true saint emperor would appear by his side. A devilish light flashed through Jian Shen's eyes. After pondering over it carefully, he said, 5 Class 9 monster cores, 20 Class 8 monster cores, 60 Class 7 monster cores, 500 Class 6 monster cores, and 3,000 Class 5 monster cores. Lejun's complexion darkened more and more with the numbers that Jian Shen demanded. His face twitched a few times unnaturally, especially when he heard the 5 Class 9 monster cores. The Heaven's Incense School was very wealthy, but such a great number of high-class magical cores would be agonizing even with their wealth. Why, you really are going too far. Do you think it's easy to obtain so many high-class monster cores? And those Class 9 monster cores in particular? Do you know exactly how powerful the magical beasts need to be in order to produce Class 9 monster cores? An old man beside the schoolmaster yelled out furiously with wide eyes. In his eyes, Jian Shen's group was committing daylight robbery, and they were stealing from a Protector clan. Jian Shen smiled as he stood with his arms crossed. Of course I know. Only magical beasts at the level of Saint Emperors can produce Class 9 monster cores, but your Heaven's Incense School is a Protector clan that has existed for over 1,000,000 years. You must have quite a few Class 9 monster cores. Monster cores cannot be stored for too long, or the energy inside will solidify or leak away. The cores might even turn into tough pieces of rock. We have indeed managed to obtain a few Class 9 monster cores throughout history, but there are not many and we've consumed some ourselves. They have all been used once they surpassed their time limit, so there are extremely few that remain today. 5 is far too many. I can give you 2, the schoolmaster said with a sunken expression. Jian Shen shook his head. No, every single monster cores must be present. Other than the monster cores, I want a saint tier cultivation method from your Heaven's Incense School as well as some corresponding heaven tier battle skills. Remember, I only want the poison attacks of your school, so don't give me some foreign cultivation method in an attempt to trick me. Lejund had already fallen silent. Only now did he discover that Jian Shen's appetite was far greater than they had imagined, nor did Jian Shen leave any room for bargaining. The cultivation methods of the Heaven's Incense School cannot be passed on to outsiders. You're dreaming if you think you can get your hands on our Saint Tier cultivation methods. Schoolmaster, they have just gone too far. We can't come to terms with them. Let's duel it out. We're a mighty protector clan. When have we ever been stepped over by other people like this? Do you really think that we're afraid of you? The saint rulers behind Lejung could not help but angrily yell. Fury burned within their eyes with deep disgrace. They had never been so embarrassed as members of a protector clan. Jianshan added, esteemed schoolmaster, looks like I need to add that before we came to visit the Heaven's Incense School, we paid a visit to the protector Changyang clan and embroiled in a great battle with them in their miniature world. We've witnessed the Emperor armament, encirclement of the 18 halls, and the origin formation, but that was still not enough for them to keep us there. Instead, it turned their miniature world into a mess and countless clansmen were injured. I believe their losses were incomparable to a few monster cores. What? The Changyang clan used the origin formation? The schoolmaster and many saint rulers changed in expression when they heard about the origin formation. They were also in possession of an origin formation, and they understood its strength extremely well. It was exactly this that made them lose their composure. CSG now has a Patreon set up, where you can read up to 35 chapters ahead. Chapter 1200, Returning Bountifully, What? The Changyang clan used the origin formation? The schoolmaster and many saint rulers changed in expression when they heard about the origin formation. They were also in possession of an origin formation, and they understood its strength extremely well. It was exactly this that made them lose their composure. This was because even saint emperors could be easily killed off by the origin formation. It was just far too powerful, yet the Changyang clan had failed to keep Jian Chen and the others from leaving after using the formation. This obviously shocked them very much. At this moment, all the people who expressed their disagreement obediently shut up. They dared not say another word. The Changyang clan was enough to be ranked within the top 3 of all the protector clans. On the other hand, the Heaven's Incense School only had 6 saint kings and not a single one at great perfection. Although they used the arts of poisoning, their strength was not on par with the Changyang clan, so how could they be opponents to people that even the Changyang clan could do nothing to? Schoolmaster, if they are telling the truth, we're probably not their opponents. At the same time, there are various poisonous grasses planted in our miniature space. If we end up fighting here, all the grasses will be destroyed. Those grasses are our lifeblood, so we cannot afford to lose them. The poison of Heaven's End may pose some harm to them, but the 4 great elders have greatly extended themselves from casting that skill in the death nest. They're still in seclusion and recuperating right now. We don't have enough power to cast the poison a second time, the old man said to the schoolmaster through a communication technique. He was a great elder of the Protector clan as well as the only saint king present other than the schoolmaster. Lejund also became extremely stern. If Jian Chen and the others made their way into the miniature world, they would sustain losses far heavier than the Changyang clan. This is exactly what he wanted to see the least. This was because the poison arts of the Protector clan could only be practiced with the corresponding poisonous grasses. They planted a large number of them in their miniature world, so if they were destroyed, it would affect the overall strength of the clan. It might even lead to a long period of decline for the clan. Okay, I agree to your request. Lejung was without choice and basically agreed in complete reluctance. Even with their heritage, the clan would buckle from the loss of so many high-class monster cores. Lejund bled inside when he thought about the 5 Class 9 monster cores. Jian Chen received a large number of monster cores, a saint-tier cultivation method, and heaven-tier battle skills. At the same time, he respected the agreement and no longer made things difficult for the Heaven's Incense School. Jian Chen's group returned to Lore City with the antidote and got He Yu to consume it as soon as possible. Even though He Yu's poison was not completely purged after consuming the antidote, his complexion took a definite turn for the better. He Yu no longer needed to use his own powers to suppress the poison. He smiled even though his face blackened from the poison and said, "Finally done with this bloody poison of heaven's end. My life was almost pulled into it. This poison sure is strong. It's good that you're fine. You almost just died to poison. So much for being a saint king at great perfection and being protected by origin energy armor," Hong Lian said in a mocking tone, as if she was making fun of him. Hey Yu became awkward for once where he became speechless. No matter what, Senior Hey Yu's problem all arose from me. If it weren't for the fact that I wanted to obtain the saint's fruit, Senior Hey Yu would not have been poisoned either. Seniors, I really need to thank you for your assistance in the past few days. I will commit your gratitude to heart and never forget about it. Jianchen clasped his hands at the three of them in sincerity. He spoke from the bottom of his heart. If it were not for their help, he would not have been able to obtain the saint's fruit, nor would he have been able to seal up the Changyang clan, let alone use them as a deterrence against the Heaven's Incense School to rob them of a large number of monster cores. Hong Lina looked at Jianchen. A faint red appeared in her pupils, as if balls of flames were leaping about inside. She said, "Jianchen, for you to stay alive would be the greatest way for you to repay us." Jianchen obviously attributed all of this to the winged tiger god because he really could not think of why the three of them would follow him everywhere if it were not for the winged tiger god. At the same time, the winged tiger god was the god of magical beasts while the three of them were magical beasts as well. Coupled with the fact that the rulers of the beast god continent wanted to scheme against the winged tiger god, it was rather straightforward why the three of them would step forward to protect the white tiger. Although He Yu had received the antidote, there was still residual poison within him, so he still needed a few days. Jianchen, Hong Lian, and Rui Jin all went their own ways after talking a little. The two of them had expended quite a lot of energy in the battle against the Changyang clan, so they both went off to recover. Jianchen and Yu strolled through the large clan beside one another. All the patrolling guards they came across would kneel down on one knee and greet them as admiration burned in their eyes. Jianchen paid no attention to the guards. All he thought about was how to split the monster cores he had just obtained. He did not plan on using them all himself. Although there was an astonished amount, the amount of energy he needed to reach the fourth layer with his chaotic body was just too much. Even after absorbing the monster cores, he would be nowhere close to breaking through. If he used the monster cores on the Changyang clan and flame mercenaries, their strength could indeed increase by quite a lot. Jianchen's expression suddenly changed. He looked into the distance and saw 4 small specks appear in the sky. They shot toward the Changyang clan with lightning-like speed, entering Lore City in just a few seconds and stopped outside the main entrance of the clan. They were 4 middle-aged men in blood-red robes. Each and every single one of them was expressionless and possessed cold eyes. They were completely emotionless and a vague layer of baleful force seemed to revolve around them. It caused the surrounding temperature to plummet, such that they were unapproachable. 2 rubby old men appeared at the entrance like ghosts. They stared emotionlessly at the 4 middle-aged men and one of them coldly questioned, "Why have you come, people from the Bloodsword sect?" "They've come for me." A clear voice rang out from behind. Jianchen walked out and Yu followed behind him. The 2 old men smiled amicably when they saw it was Jianchen. They nodded at him before vanishing with a flash. Jianchen did not know the names of the 2 old men. He only knew that they were saint rulers of the Zhu branch, so he should refer to them as great-grandfather in terms of seniority. The 4 protectors greet the sect master. The 4 middle-aged men all knelt on one knee and called out in unison. Jianchen hurried to make them rise. The Changyang clan owed a debt of gratitude to the 4 protectors since they had saved the entire clan before. He had never forgotten this. Jianchen brought the 4 protectors to his own hall. He asked, "Protectors, is there any reason why you've suddenly come looking for me?" "Sect master, the old sect master has passed over the position quite a long time ago. The 4 of us have come under the orders of the vice sect master to invite the sect master back to the sect so that we can hold the ceremony of succession, as well as plan the future of the sect," replied a protector. "Protectors, may I ask if there is anyone who is against me inheriting the position? Jianshen tapped the desk rhythmically with his finger as he stared at the protectors in interest. Sect Master, there is no room for doubt about your strength. Including the Vice Sect Master, everyone is extremely supportive of you taking on the position as Sect Master. No one has any disagreements, said the same protector. Jianshen nodded slightly and said, all right then, but before I go to the Bloodsword sect, there's some matter I need to deal with. Why don't the four of you stay in the clan for a few days, and I'll go with you back to the sect after I deal with these matters. As the sect master wishes. Afterward, Jianshen found Changyangba and passed 500 class 5 monster cores, 100 class 6 monster cores, and 10 class 7 monster cores he had obtained from the Heaven's Incense School to him to nurture the forces of the Changyang clan. Jianshen did not care how Changyangba split the monster cores. Afterward, Jianshen entered the artifact spirit. In the center of the space stood a majestic hall. Jianshen boldly sat on the throne in the center of the hall. Behind him quietly stood a white-robed, scholarly middle-aged man. He was like a servant. The middle-aged man was the artifact spirit, the supreme ruler of the artifact space. At this moment, a group of several dozen people entered the hall in an orderly fashion. They stepped gently and did not make any sounds at all. All of them were burly, thick-chested men who radiated with a bold presence. They were abnormally powerful. After consuming the serpent dragon's flesh and blood, their bodies had clearly become bigger. We greet the captain, all 66 men dropped to one knee and thunderously yelled out. The commotion was so great that it contained an irresistible force. Jianshen said nothing. A special light flickered in his bright eyes as he slowly glanced over all of them. He became more satisfied and happy the more he looked before finally revealing a smile involuntarily. Suddenly, Jianshen stood up from the throne and walked down. He said, good, good, good. Impressive, impressive indeed. You have been improving at a divine speed recently. Of the 66, 43 of you have reached the 6th cycle while the remaining 23 are at the 4th cycle at the least. I believe that you will all be able to reach the 6th cycle without much time. You really have lived up to my wishes. Kai Er said, Captain, our current achievements are all due to Captain's nurturing without holding back at all. If we did not have your nurturing, we would only have been able to reach Earth Saint Master at most with our talent. Reaching Heaven Saint Master would only be an extravagant wish. That's right. If it weren't for Captain, we probably would still be hunting magical beasts in the forests just to eat. We might not have even been able to live till this day, dying in the mouths of magical beasts by now. Our current accomplishments are all because of Captain. Mo Tian said excitedly. To all of them, becoming a Heaven Saint Master had once been an extravagant wish. CSG now has a Patreon set up, where you can read up to 35 chapters ahead. Chapter 1201, Distributing Monster Cores. Jianshen was extremely satisfied. He said, I guarantee that you will definitely not halt at the level of a Heaven Saint Master but at the level of a Saint Ruler, or even the godlike cultivation level in your eyes, Saint King. However, remember that you are not only loyal to me, you are also loyal to the Flame Mercenaries at the same time. You are a member of the Flame Mercenaries, and you will become their protector gods in the future. Captain, we can forget our names but we will never forget your orders, a person with a large mustache exclaimed from the group. He was in high spirits and his eyes were brimming with a confident belief. Jianshen revealed a smile. He also felt extremely proud when he saw the lively group since he had personally nurtured all of them. He had groomed them from low-level mercenaries who struggled to make a living daily on the Tianyuan continent to the experts before him now. However, Jianshen had also paid a great price in order to create a group like this. Whether it was heavenly resources, monster cores, cultivation methods, or battle skills, he had used everything he could without holding back. Even organizations as powerful as ancient clans would not have been able to make such an investment. At the same, he had even went to the divine realm of the sea realm to collect divine water of the world specifically for them, just to make up for their innate deficiencies that prevented them from reaching Saint Ruler. At this moment, Jianchen pulled out another space ring and passed it to Kai. He said, "There are 200 Class 6 monster cores, 30 Class 7 monster cores, a Saint tier cultivation method, and Heaven tier battle skills in there. Split it with those who are in need." Jianchen was willing to pay whatever price to get the group to reach his anticipated target of strength as soon as possible. The flame mercenaries were in too great of a need for their own powerful force. "Yes, Captain." Kai excitedly accepted the space ring. Even his hand that held the ring trembled. His heart surged inside when he thought about all the monster cores inside the ring. Cultivate well. Once you become Saint Rulers, you can leave here and go to the outside world. Jianchen did not stick around for long. He left the artifact space after adding that. At the Changyang clan, it had been less than half a day since he had returned from the Heaven's Incense School. Almost all the high-class monster cores had been split up other than the Class 8 and 9 monster cores. Only 20 of the 60 Class 7 monster cores remained, 200 of the 600 Class 6 remained, and relatively more Class 5 monster cores remained, sitting at 2,500. Afterward, Jianchen requested Changyang Zhu Yunshao to create a space gate, proceeding to Flame City with Yu. Jianchen and Yu quietly passed through the palace-like city lord's estate in the center of the city, heading toward a heavily guarded study room. Jianchen used his powerful abilities as a 9th heavenly layer Saint Ruler to ensure that none of the many experts hidden in the surroundings discovered him, allowing him to enter the study silently. It was a very large and extravagant study, covering a surface area of several hundred square meters. The faint, unique smell of books lingered in the air. Right in the center of the room sat a woman in white robes, whose attention was completely focused on the book in her hands. She only seemed to be 20 years of age and possessed a lovely appearance. Her glossy, black hair was kept in a coil with an exquisite pin. The hairpin shone with faint purple light. It had been crafted from invaluable purple gold. She possessed a ruler's presence that could only appear after maintaining a position of authority for many years. On the two sides of the desk stood a man and a woman. They were both Heaven Saint Masters, silently protecting the woman who read there. At this moment, the door to the room opened silently. Jianchen and Yu walked in side by side. Without any additional movements, the door closed automatically, but there was no sound during the entire process. The two Heaven Saint Masters kept an eye in the direction of the entrance, so they discovered Jianchen and Yu as soon as they walked through the door. Their gazes immediately sharpened, and just when they wanted to call out, they discovered that the space surrounding them had instantly frozen, and they were completely immobilized. They could not even speak. The lady at the desk sensed nothing. She was completely drawn in by the book, and only when Yu arrived before the desk and knocked on it did the lady suddenly realize there were guests. However, she became stunned when she saw Jianchen and Yu who had suddenly appeared and then rejoiced. She immediately put down her book and arrived before Yu, grabbing her hands in a close manner. She excitedly said, "Brother, Sister Yue, you've come. Why didn't you send someone to inform me first?" Yu smiled, "Sister Liener, we wanted to give you a surprise, so we came to visit you without notifying you. I hope you haven't become unhappy because of this." Bai Lian pouted and said in some displeasure, "Brother, sister, there's not enough time for me to be happy with your arrival, so how can I be unhappy?" Bai Lian arrived by Jianchen's side and grabbed his other arm. She looked at him hopefully and said, "Brother, you're the captain of the Flame Mercenaries. Shouldn't you stay for a little longer now that you've come to your own territory? I might have to disappoint you then. I've come for a certain matter this time, so I'll have to leave very soon." Jianchen smiled. Bai Lian immediately became dejected, but she knew that her brother had been running all over the place over the last few days. He indeed had a lot of matters to deal with, so she did not insist on him staying. Aren't you having it too easy as the captain? You throw such a big burden onto your sister, yet you don't bother with it at all yourself. All you do every day is travel and play. At this moment, an old voice rang out from outside. The door then opened and Bai Hai walked in with his arms behind his back. Bai Hai had originally stayed at the bottom of Mercenary City with Huang Tianba, but he worried about Bai Lian's safety, so he had returned to Mercenary City. Jian Shen and Yu Yu greeted Bai Hai as juniors, and Jian Shen then rebuked, "Great-grandfather, I must disagree with what you said toward the end. I haven't been traveling and playing. I have been dealing with important matters instead. I don't care if you have important matters to attend to or if you're running around playing. You better free up your sister soon, so she can break free from this mess and focus on cultivation. Otherwise, it'll interfere with her future." In Bai Hai's eyes, the flame mercenaries were nothing. He cared more about Bai Lian's personal strength. Even if someone managed to unite the entire continent one day, they would pass away without long if they did not possess absolute strength. Personal strength was far more important than anything else. CSG now has a Patreon set up, where you can read up to 35 chapters ahead. Chapter 1202, A Path of Severance. God, great-grandfather, stop. I don't want to be like you, locking myself up in a room all day and staying there several months or even years on end. It's so boring. I like to manage the flame mercenaries. Look, the flame mercenaries have become so prosperous under my management. This is much more interesting than locking yourself up every day, Bai Lian replied in satisfaction. She felt that she had accomplished much. Bai Hai angrily glared at her. He seemed very stern, but there was unconcealable affection in his eyes. He angrily said, "You're far too disobedient. What accomplishments can you achieve by spending all your time on this mess? If you don't cultivate properly, you will be wasting all the valuable heavenly resources your brother has spent on you. If you really want to help your brother, then cultivate properly. This is much more useful than managing this mess. No matter how well you manage this, you will not be as useful as a Saint King. They can turn everything you've built into nothing with just a wave of their hand." Bai Lian found what Bai Hai said to be reasonable, so she did not rebuke him. She stuck out her tongue mischievously and grabbed one of Bai Hai's hands, shaking it gently. She sweetly said, "Great-grandfather, of course I understand that. Actually, you don't know how much harder I've been working on my cultivation lately." "How much harder?" "Humph, do you really think that I don't know what you're doing just because I'm not by your side all the time? There's 24 hours in a day and you only spend 4 or 5 hours cultivating. Is that called working hard?" Bai Hai had nowhere to vent his anger. He really could do nothing to his clever great-granddaughter right in front of her, and he would often become exhausted by what she did. As the most authoritative member of the Flame Mercenaries, Bai Lian actually avoided the furious Bai Hai. She arrived beside Jian Shen and looked at him pleadingly, "Brother, look how severe great-grandpa is. I'm the only girl in the family, and he always wants to lock me up in a dark, scary basement. I know you care for me the most, right? Please persuade him for me. I know your words are like an imperial edict. It's more useful than anything, and even Grandpa Bai Hai won't ignore them." "You brat," Bai Hai was utterly furious. He pointed at Bai Lian but could say nothing for quite some time. Jian Shen looked at Bai Lian's pitiful appearance in affection and smiled, "Liener, Grandpa's right. Becoming powerful yourself is much more important than anything else. You should leave the many matters of the mercenaries to others when you need to." "Okay, brother, I understand." Clearly, Bai Lian listened to Jian Shen more. As soon as he said something, she became docile, but a mischievous light appeared in her eyes. She said, "Brother, if you stay and guard the city, a lot of the matters that I worry over will be gone. That way, I can spend more time on cultivation." Jian Shen stared at his sister, unsure of how to react. He said, "Liener, I really don't have much time. How about this? I'll stay in the city for the next 2 days, and I'll work with Grandpa to guide you in your cultivation." Afterward, Jian Shen passed a space ring to Bai Lian before temporarily settling down in the city. The space ring contained all the remaining Class 5, 6, and 7 monster cores from the Heaven's Incense School, but all the Class 7 monster cores went to Bai Hai to hold. He only gave the other monster cores to Bai Lian to distribute. At the same time, in the desolate wilderness, a burly man in horrible condition walked with difficulty. He was disheveled and his clothes were torn in many places. He was barefooted as well, so he seemed just like a beggar. A few vicious gashes were present on his body, all signs of being bitten by magical beasts or being cut by weapons. Even though the man was very heavily injured, his steps were still filled with vigor. He traveled like the wind, as if he was completely fine. The man stopped and pulled out a map to check. Afterward, he swept away his messy hair, revealing 2 eyes that were as profound as the starry sky. With this speed, I'll be able to get to him in another month, mumbled the man before putting the map away and continuing on his way. At this moment, a figure flew over from afar. He landed and walked beside the disheveled man. He was a young person in blue robes, and only seemed to be around 30 years of age. His appearance was rather striking. "Kid, I just went to a city 100 kilometers away and bought some roast chicken and some good liquor. Let's sit down and have a good meal." The young man pulled out 2 roasted chickens from his space ring as he spoke to the disheveled man. He threw one over casually. The 2 of them clearly knew each other extremely well since they did not greet each other at all. Holding the roast chicken in one hand and a flask of liquor in the other, they sat down and began wolfing down the food. "Kid, I gotta give it to you for your determination and resolution. There's so many magical beasts you can ride, but you just have to insist on walking with your legs. The Tian Yuan continent is so big. If you just use your legs, you'll never be able to walk from the east to the west even in your entire lifetime. Your home is so far away as well. Why don't I take you along with me as I travel? You probably need another year or 2 before you can walk back," the young man said with his mouth full. The disheveled man swallowed his mouthful of food and stared at the young man with his deep eyes. He seriously replied, "Senior, all life is wise, and all of it is nurtured by the world. We humans are only the few among them. As soon as the opportunity arises, we can comprehend the true essence of the world. The world is wondrous, and the earth that forms this world is filled with a vast and unbelievably wondrous power. When you walk on the ground with your 2 feet, you can sense this power. You can sense the veins of the world and then comprehend the true essence of the world through the wondrous power and the veins." "What are you saying? The earth has a vast and unbelievably wondrous power? Really? Why don't I feel it?" The young man stood on the ground and walked around to confirm what he had just said. "Senior, you can't sense it because your opportunity still has not arisen, or you lack something," the disheveled man replied in serious voice. He did not seem like he was joking at all. The young man broke into laughter. He sat back down next to the disheveled man and laughed. "To think that I, greed King Wang Yixiao, a great saint ruler who's only a step away from Saint King, would be described so horribly by a mere earth saint master in such a place. This really is funny. Kid, what do I lack? What is that thing you say that I lack?" "You lack," the disheveled man sank into his thoughts. After pondering seriously for a while, he shook his head in confusion in the end. He said, "I don't know what Senior lacks either. You really are one interesting kid. If it weren't for the fact that the cultivation method I practice is special and I can feel whether someone is telling a lie or not, I would definitely think that you're tricking me. Kid, do you know what the outcome for those who trick me are?" Feng Yixiao said. "I can also feel that Senior is someone who kills without second thought and that your hands are covered by the blood of countless people. All those who offend Senior end up dead without exception," the disheveled man responded at ease. "You're not afraid?" Feng Yixiao looked at the disheveled man. The man shook his head. "The world has no attachments. When all sentient creatures are born, they also hold no attachments. The so-called 7 desires and 6 emotions only came into existence after birth. I walk a path of the world, a path of severance, a path of liberation, so I obviously need to sever my 7 emotions and 6 desires. I obviously do not fear death. I have already severed that fear. You sure are weird, kid. I've wandered the continent for over 1,000 years, and I've seen countless other people of all shapes and sizes, but you really are the first. You just said that you walk a path of severance and that you will sever the 7 emotions and 6 desires. If that's the case, why do you still want to go home? If it's been severed already, is there still any point in returning? Feng Yixiao asked out of curiosity. I've already severed most of the emotions and desires that came into existence after birth, but I can't sever the last portion. The man suddenly became sorrowful. Tears rolled from his eyes and he painfully said, I can't forget my dad, much less my mum. My mum only has me as her only son, so if she loses me, she will be in so much pain that she would wish she was dead. And my sister and 2 brothers, I can't forget them, nor do I dare to forget them. I don't want to become a person who is heartless. I can't sever this last part, I can't. I can't, the disheveled old man had basically yelled out the last parts. He was filled with sorrow. Feng Yixiao stopped eating and stared at the man. Only after a long while later did he sigh gently, you walk a different path of cultivation. Although I am unable to understand just what it is, I know that the path is extremely brutal. It is not suitable for the current you, so if it doesn't work, just choose another. The disheveled man shook his head and said, I have a feeling that I have no other path I can continue down aside from this one. CSG now has a Patreon set up, where you can read up to 35 chapters ahead. Chapter 1203, Wolf King of Greed, Feng Yixiao, are your feelings reliable? Are you just going to believe in your feelings like this? Feng Yixiao weirdly looked at the disheveled man. This was the first time he had ever come across such an interesting Earth Saint Master in his long history of being alive. However, Feng Yixiao understood that the disheveled man before him was not particularly impressive in terms of strength, but he did possess a truly unique aspect, or Feng Yixiao would not bother with a mere Earth Saint Master with his current strength and prideful personality. The disheveled man nodded firmly. He said without any room for disagreement, I believe in my feelings very much. Ever since I began my journey on this path, I felt that they have not been wrong. Everything that I feel will happen. Oh, since your senses are so sharp, then can I ask if you will forget people you don't want to forget? Feng Yixiao asked in much interest as he bit into his roast chicken. The disheveled man became very dejected and lost all appetite. He lowered his head and said with a heavy voice, I am afraid of thinking about that, and I am also afraid of sensing the future of that. I'm afraid that some sorrowful things will happen to me. The disheveled man fell silent for a little longer. He seemed to understand something. He deeply sighed and said, severing the emotions and desires is not forcing yourself to forget but to break free from them. There should not be any pain in the entire process, only indifference. I have still yet to sever my emotions for my family, which is why I am in pain, but in the future, if I sever this unknowingly, I will never feel like this again. At that time, my family in my eyes will be nothing. I will forget everyone at that moment, including my mother. The disheveled man's voice was filled with deep sorrow. He knew extremely well that if he overcame this last obstacle, he probably would be able to reach an unmatched level of cultivation. His strength would drastically increase, but he would abandon all his emotions at the same time. He did not want to do this. He would rather be an ordinary person than abandon his connection with his parents, except he had no other choice. Right now, his fate seemed to have been predetermined. He could not stop if he wished. All he could do was proceed along the path. Feng Yixiao threw the last chicken bone far away before downing the entire flask of liquor. Afterward, he stood up and said, Kid, since you're so sorrowful, let's not talk about this. Look at you. You're a man, yet you're about to cry just like a girl. I just happen to have matters I need to attend to. I've already spent quite a lot of time with you, so I can't waste any more time. I gotta go immediately. The disheveled man calmed down very quickly. He stood up and said, "Senior, thank you for helping me in the past few days. If there is a chance, I will definitely return the favor." Feng Yixiao chuckled aloud. He said, "Return the favor? Ha ha ha, you probably won't even remember who I am the next time we meet. Would there still be any favors to return?" "Senior, I definitely won't forget you," the disheveled man replied rather awkwardly. All right. Enough of this. Kid, aren't you going to the Jessen Kingdom? There's still over 100,000 kilometers, so you probably have to walk for a few years with just your legs. That just happens to be in the direction I'm traveling, so I'll just carry you with me. I can't take you all the way to Jessen Kingdom, but at least it'll cut down the distance you have to walk, Feng Yixiao said in an extremely straightforward manner. For a mere Earth Saint Master to receive the help of a 9th heavenly layer Saint Ruler would be a great honor. However, the disheveled man behaved as usual. All he did was smile gratefully before calming down. He was not excited in any way. Feng Yixiao had grown accustomed to his calm demeanor long ago. Without saying anything more, he grabbed the man's shoulder and left extremely hastily. A white-robed, middle-aged man with an extremely ordinary appearance silently appeared where they had been after Feng Yixiao had left. He looked in the direction the two of them had traveled off to in a trance and mumbled, "Changyang Hu's at the last, crucial stage of breaking through to worldly transcendence. All he needs is one final step to overcome it." Changyang Hu has experienced a lot during his journey after he left the Pure Heart Pavilion. He has experienced tests of life and death and understood the various aspects of life, allowing him to take a solid step in worldly transcendence. It's just a pity that Feng Yixiao suddenly appeared halfway through. Not only did he fail to help Changyang Hu, he even ruined it all, or Changyang Hu probably would have been able to severe the last part before the journey ended. Feng Yixiao is letting Changyang Hu arrive home sooner. I wonder if it'll affect anything. A saint ruler would actually become interested in a mere Earth Saint Master. Sigh, is this really the will of the heavens? Even the heavens have organized Changyang Hu to meet with his family in this last stage. Feng Yixiao hurried along using spatial force. He fused with the surrounding space and completely disappeared. Although he moved extremely quick, he was unaffected by the drag of air, so he moved in complete silence. The disheveled man being carried along with him could only look at the blurry landscape that shot past beneath him. When they flew over a city, he could not even see what the city looked like. In less than half a day, Feng Yixiao traversed several tens of thousand kilometers with his strength as a saint ruler at the 9th heavenly layer. In the end, he stopped 10 kilometers away from a small town. "Kid, I can only take you here. You need to rely on yourself for the future journey. Take these purple coins and buy some things you need when you travel." Feng Yixiao was straightforward and extravagant, throwing his space ring to the disheveled man. "Senior, I don't need it, kid, there's never been the case where I take back things I give out. Are you looking down on my giving you things?" Feng Yixiao narrowed his eyes and unhappily asked. The disheveled man had no other choice. All he could do was accept the space ring obediently. Feng Yixiao patted his shoulder. "Kid, look after yourself in the future. I hope you can still remember who I am when we meet again next time." With that, he flew away before the disheveled man could reply. "Senior, I will definitely still remember you when we meet next time," the disheveled man yelled in the direction Feng Yixiao had disappeared. The disheveled man did not leave and instead stood where he was, silently gazing in the direction had left Feng Yixiao. The two of them were strangers to one another, yet Feng Yixiao had actually helped him so much in such a selfless manner despite being a saint ruler. This touched him deeply. He could clearly feel Feng Yixiao's sincerity toward him during the days they had spent together. Feng Yixiao did not have any other intentions. Suddenly, the disheveled man's eyes darkened. There was no light at all in the darkness. It was like that had become a vast, infinite, and boundless space of darkness. If someone else looked him in the eyes, they would feel that their souls would be sucked in. But the next moment, faint glimmers of light suddenly began to flicker in his dark eyes. They were like the stars of the night sky. His eyes seemed to contain some other space, some other universe. Suddenly, the man violently jerked. He returned his senses at that moment and his eyes immediately returned to normal. He cried out, "Oh no, Senior's going to die for sure. There's no chance of him surviving." With that, the disheveled man began to sprint in Feng Yixiao's direction. A mysterious force seemed to surge out of the ground with every step, pushing him forward. Although he was only an Earth Saint Master, his current speed was even greater than Heaven Saint Masters flying. Even wind-attributed 6th cycle Heaven Saint Masters would not be as fast as him. Jian Chen, Yu Yu, Bai Lian, Bai Hai, and the others currently sat around a table as they ate in the Flame Mercenaries' den. Even Du Gufeng was present. Although Jian Chen had basically subdued Du Gufeng as a servant back in Mercenary City, he had always treated him like a brother and never as an outsider. In reality, Du Gufeng lived up to Jian Chen's hopes as well. He forsook his own time to cultivate and took up the position of a disciplinary elder, pouring his heart into the development of the mercenaries. Du Gufeng had always been a quiet person, so he did not say much at all at the table. He seemed rather cold. Du Gufeng, it really has been busy for you during these past years. For the development of the mercenaries, you've even given up your own cultivation time. If you want to let go of everything you're doing right now, you can come find Bai Lian at any time. After all, your personal cultivation is more important. Possessing great strength is far more useful than possessing great authority, Jian Chen sincerely said. In his eyes, authority was not important at all. Even kings would need to lower themselves in front of saint rulers. Even one of the 8 great kingdoms like the Qinhuang kingdom would be nothing in front of saint kings. A wave of the hand would be all that was needed to reduce so many years of work into nothing. Now that the foundation of the Flame Mercenaries is stable, I need to spend another 2 years consolidating it, and then I can let go of everything I'm doing. I'll focus on cultivating after that, Du Gufeng expressionlessly replied. His voice was rather cold. Jian Chen laughed. At that time, I will make you into a saint ruler as soon as possible and give you the chance to become a saint king. CSG now has a Patreon set up, where you can read up to 35 chapters ahead. Chapter 1204, Feng Yixiao's enemy. A sliver of burning desire finally appeared in Du Gufeng's eyes. This was a desire to become a saint king. Jian Chen's words had influenced him very much. It's just a pity that Sans is out on a mission and not here. Otherwise, there would be one more person at the table with us. Speaking of which, Sans should take up the position as captain, Jian Chen rather regretfully lamented. The Flame Mercenaries may have been founded by Sans' father, but his strength is still low. If he becomes captain, it'll become difficult for everyone to follow his orders. It might result in fractures within the mercenaries as well, Du Gufeng fearlessly replied. Jian Chen did not get mad. Right now, we need Sans to grow up properly. Once he has enough strength, I'll pass on the position to him so he can take over his father's organization. I'll be able to hand it over for his father. With that, Jian Chen's eyes froze. He looked toward the east. He seemed to be able to see through many obstructions and everything that happened outside could not escape his eyes even though he was inside. There's someone who has come with ill intentions. Looks like I've come at the perfect time, Jian Chen mentioned in a heavy voice as he slowly lowered his cup. What? Someone's come looking for trouble? Bai Lian obviously heard Jian Chen's mutterings. She became shocked. There was no one on the continent who did not know the name of the Flame Mercenaries. Ever since they had taken the city back from the Extinguishing Alliance, they had established their strength, such that all the major organizations on the continent would fear them. There was no one who dared to cause trouble for the Flame Mercenaries now, so Bai Lian had even begun to doubt if she had heard what Jian Chen had said correctly. Surprise appeared in Bai Hai's eyes as well. Other than the 10 protector clans of the continent, there was no one who would dare to provoke them with Jian Chen's infamy as the captain. Even the 10 protector clans were extremely fearful of Jian Chen. Perhaps it's a group even more tremendous than the protector clans? At this moment, an odd thought actually crossed Bai Hai's head, but he soon made a self-deprecating smile. Suddenly, a vast presence appeared in the sky, almost enveloping the entire city. The presence possessed the violence and boldness of a vicious beast. The howls of wolves seemed to ring out when the presence appeared. This was the powerful presence of a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler. It immediately pressed down upon countless mercenaries in the city to the point where they could not breathe. Many people became pale white as they felt like a mountain was squashing their chest, suffocating them. The mercenaries were not powerful. There were only a few heaven saint masters and most of them were not even earth saint masters, so they were unable to endure the presence of a saint ruler. A young man who seemed to be around 30 years of age hovered in the air above the city with his arms crossed. His eyes were slightly closed, and he was emotionless, staring fixedly at the city lord's estate below. Who dares to cause trouble in Flame City? Name yourself. Someone yelled out from the estate, and with that voice, 5 old men shot into the sky from various parts of the estate. They were lightning fast and were out of the building in a flash before disappearing from where they were. They reappeared in the sky, facing the young man. The 5 saint rulers were all people who had joined the flame mercenaries. Aside from Bai Hai, they were the only other saint rulers in the entire city. The black-robed man on one side clearly recognized the young man among the 5 of them. His eyes narrowed and his complexion became rather unnatural. He exclaimed, "It's actually you, the Wolf King of Greed, Feng Yixiao." The young man glared at the old man and coldly smiled, "Gu Tu, I've searched you for 5 whole decades. I never thought that you'd actually be hiding in the flame mercenaries, which sure was unexpected. I let you escape last time, but I'd like to see where you run this time." With that, Feng Yixiao's presence skyrocketed. The powerful energy of a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler leaked from his body, which vaguely condensed into a howling wolf. Immediately, the wind began to blow wildly as energy of the world surged messily through the air. The 5 saint ruler all became extremely stern as fear filled the depths of their eyes. Their senses were exceptional, and they could tell that Feng Yixiao was at the peak of the 9th heavenly layer. He was a terrifying existence with half a foot planted across the threshold of Saint King, so he was even more terrifying than most 9th heavenly layer saint rulers. On the other hand, the strongest of the 5 of them had only reached the 5th heavenly layer recently, while the weakest was only at the 2nd heavenly layer. They were nowhere near Feng Yixiao's level, so even if they worked together, they would not be able to defeat Feng Yixiao if they really began to fight. "Feng Yixiao, this is the base of the flame mercenaries. I am a great protector of the mercenaries, so I cannot allow you to act so brazenly here. Are you not afraid of offending the flame mercenaries and declaring war against us?" Gu Tu asked. His enmity with Feng Yixiao was irreconcilable, and he had almost died to Feng Yixiao's hands 50 years ago, but he managed to flee in the end out of luck. Now that Feng Yixiao had come knocking on the door again, he was even more powerful than 50 years ago. Gu Tu could not flee even if he wanted to, so all he could do was rely on the flame mercenaries to scare him away. Feng Yixiao's killing intent in his eyes became denser. He coldly said, "Gu Tu, this is the enmity between the 2 of us. It has nothing to do with the flame mercenaries, so quit trying to scare me off by bringing them up." Gu Tu laughed aloud. He looked at Feng Yixiao like he was looking at a joke. Legend has it that the Wolf King of Greed is afraid of nothing and always does as he wishes. No one can stop him, much less change his mind. Looks like that is untrue today, being scared like this by the flame mercenaries. Feng Yixiao's eyes grew colder as fury filled his face. Powerful killing intent began to radiate out uncontrollably. What Gu Tu had said had completely agitated him. "Feng Yixiao, you will never have the chance to kill me. Of course, unless you don't want to live, since you are taking on the risk of becoming a public enemy of the flame mercenaries by attempting to kill a great protector of the flame mercenaries." Gu Tu became even more fearless when he saw how Feng Yixiao was fearful of the flame mercenaries. He began laughing aloud. Back then, he had almost passed away after being hunted down by Feng Yixiao, so he hated him very much. He could finally vent all of his anger now. CSG now has a Patreon set up, where you can read up to 35 chapters ahead. Chapter 1205, Changyang whose arrival. 1. Feng Yixiao was an obstinate, unruly, and prideful person. Coupled with his dignity as a ninth heavenly layer saint ruler, how could he hold himself back against the provocation of an ant-like existences in his eyes? Even though he was very fearful of the flame mercenaries, he could not bear with being laughed at by an ant. Gu Tu, do you really think that I will let you go just because you've joined the flame mercenaries? You've underestimated me far too much. If I want to kill someone, that person is dead for sure, Feng Yixiao icily said. With that, all that was left was an afterimage. He charged toward Gu Tu at an extremely great speed, arriving by his side instantly. He used his right hand to reach for Gu Tu's neck. Saint force surged in that hand, so it seemed to have become an extremely sharp wolf's claw. Gu Tu had never expected Feng Yixiao to actually attempt to touch him. He paled in fright and retreated as quickly as possible, using all he had to avoid Feng Yixiao's lightning-fast attack. The disparity between their strength was just far too great. It could be described as a chasm, so Gu Tu could only dodge when faced with Feng Yixiao's attacks. He did not even have the ability to fight back. Blood scattered through the air. Even though Gu Tu had used everything he had, he was still unable to dodge the attack. His neck had been reduced to a bloody mess while a large chunk of flesh had been clawed away. It was a vicious wound. Warm blood spurted from Gu Tu's neck like a fountain. It shot into the air like the blooming of a beautiful flower. Gu Tu clenched his wound tightly as he shot back. Fear filled his eyes. The wound on his neck would have already been fatal to a heaven saint master, but as a saint ruler, he would be fine even if he lost his body since his soul would be fine. Wolf King, why, you are declaring war on the flame mercenaries. Our great captain will never let you go, Gu Tu cried out desperately as he flew back in a panic. His voice had become extremely hoarse due to the injury of his neck. Feng Yixiao said nothing. His face was sunken and filled with icy cold killing intent. He shot past the 4 other saint rulers with a slight motion and pursued Gu Tuesday. Wolf King, you are acting far too brazenly to declare war against the flame mercenaries. Great protectors, please immediately punish him to protect the power of the mercenaries. Our dignity and honor cannot be sullied like this by the Wolf King, or none of us will be let off easily when Captain gets around to punishing us. Gu Tu cried out urgently in attempt to persuade the 4 other saint rulers to keep Feng Yixiao busy. The 4 saint rulers immediately shivered inside when they heard the captain mentioned. The light in their eyes began to flicker, and they became hesitant. They possessed both fear and respect for their Saint King captain. They really could not afford to be punished by the captain. Feng Yixiao suddenly sent an icy cold gaze toward the 4 of them, perhaps due to the fact that he had sensed that they had changed their minds. The 4 saint rulers leapt in fright inside from the glance. At that moment, all 4 of them seemed to feel like they were suffocating, greatly shocking them. This was not the first time the 4 of them had experienced something like this, but this was a feeling that could only be caused by Saint Kings, yet they had actually sensed it from Feng Yixiao right now, which they found to be quite unbelievable. Looks like Feng Yixiao will be able to break through to Saint King very soon. At that moment, similar thoughts crossed all of their heads with some envy. Protectors, listen to me. This is the enmity between Gu Tu and me. It has nothing to do with you. However, if you interfere, you cannot blame me for not showing some respect to your captain, Feng Yixiao coldly said before continuing to pursue Gu Tuesday. The 4 saint rulers remained exactly where they were. They did not move no matter what Gu Tu said. Feng Yixiao's strength filled them with fear, and he had even said what he would do if they did interfere. They were not stupid enough to seek their own deaths. Gu Tu could not fight Feng Yixiao at all. He was littered with wounds now. Other than the injury on his neck, Feng Yixiao had caused a fist-sized hole to his chest where his heart was. Thus, his heart had been reduced to mush in Feng Yixiao's hand while one of his arms was severed as well. He was in a miserable state. Gu Tu, I'd like to see how you flee this time. But don't worry, I won't kill you immediately. I'll torture you viciously first and then let you die in excruciating pain. Feng Yixiao sneered. His right hand seemed to have transformed into a sharp wolf's claw, constantly raking Gu Tu's body and clawing away blood and flesh. Heavily injured, Gu Tu was like a lamb waiting to be butchered. He could not help but cry out in a chilling fashion from the pain. He roared, "Wolf King, the captain will not let you go. You kill me today, and you'll end up the same as me not much later. I'll be waiting for you in hell." With that, Gu Tu grunted again. A piece of flesh near his waist had been carved away by Feng Yixiao. Stop. A great protector of the flame mercenaries is not someone you can humiliate like this. An old but clear voice suddenly rang out from the city lord's estate. Afterward, an old man furiously shot into the sky as a heavy and powerful presence wrapped around him. Feng Yixiao glanced at Bai Hai, who flew over from below. He said, "Another saint ruler at the 7th heavenly layer, but that's still not enough to stop me. Gu Tu, I originally planned to let you live a little longer, but looks like I need to finish you off immediately to prevent any unnecessary problems." Feng Yixiao no longer tortured Gu Tuesday. With a thought, the space around Gu Tu froze, completely immobilizing him. Even in his peak condition, Gu Tu would have to use several attacks at full strength to break through the frozen space of a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler. Now that he was heavily injured, he could not even use 30% of his full strength. He was completely helpless against the frozen space. He was only left helplessly watching as Feng Yixiao approached him in an aggressive manner. "Save me, Bai Hai." Gu Tu called for help in panic. Faced with the threat of death, he was filled with fear. Unfortunately, Feng Yixiao's right fingers had already stabbed deep into his head right after what he had said. Gu Tu's body suddenly froze before becoming limp, as if he had lost all power over his body. His wide-open eyes quickly lost their light as well. His soul was unable to escape in time, being dissipated by Feng Yixiao. "How dare you? Sir, you are the first person who has ever killed a great protector of the flame mercenaries out in the open," Bai Hai roared out. He was utterly furious, and at the same time, a huge sword that was the width of a palm appeared in his hand. Pure and powerful water-attributed saint force wrapped around the sword as the surrounding space shook slightly from the terrifying energy. It began to twist. Fourth miracle water of Bai, soul chaser. Bai Hai knew that Feng Yixiao was very powerful. Yelling out, he used a saint-tier battle skill to deal with him. Immediately, a vast pressure descended from the sky, squashing him like an invisible mountain. The pressure was so great that Feng Yixiao sank slightly in the air. There were 4 forms to the battle skill of the Bai family. Each form belonged to a specific level: the human tier, earth tier, heaven tier, and saint tier. There were 2 techniques for the saint tier battle skill. One was an attack, soul chaser, while the second was a fleeing technique, absolute rebirth. Bai Hai was bathed in a dense water-blue light. He raised his sword high up into the air before swinging it with lightning-like speed. The sword easily cut through space, which was ripped apart like a piece of paper, extending toward Feng Yixiao at an unbelievable speed. Looking closer, it would not have been difficult to sense the pulse of a sword, invisible to the naked eye, hidden within the rapidly expanding crack. It was the movement of the pulse that cracked the space. Although there was no earth-shaking commotion, its power was evident. Feng Yixiao drew his right hand from Gu Tu's head. Without even glancing at the corpse, he allowed it to fall to the ground. He said, "I never thought that you would know a saint-tier battle skill. It is indeed powerful. With your strength at the 7th heavenly layer, it is more than enough to deal with a saint ruler at the 9th heavenly layer, but it's a pity that your opponent is me, the Wolf King of Greed, Feng Yixiao." Feng Yixiao remained composed in front of Baihai's Saint-Tier battle skill. He hurled a fist and surging energy poured from it. It instantly turned into a wolf, colliding with Baihai's Saint-Tier battle skill. The wolf collided with the sword pulse and the two of them silently disappeared. There was no shockwave at all. Both were reduced to the energy of the world. Baihai's eyes widened as disbelief plastered across his face. His Saint-Tier battle skill had actually been nullified by such a casual counterattack. He found it rather difficult to accept. Chapter 1206, Changyang Hu's Arrival, 2. Baihai's Saint-Tier battle skill was easily nullified by Feng Yixiao, which completely stunned Baihai. Even the four saint rulers in the distance were filled with disbelief as well. They knew that Feng Yixiao was extremely powerful and that they would not be his opponent even if they worked together. However, Baihai was still a 7th heavenly layer saint ruler. He still may not have been Feng Yixiao's opponent, but he was much closer at the very least. Coupled with the fact that he had used a Saint-Tier battle skill, it was enough to pose a threat to some Saint Kings. However, Feng Yixiao had actually completely nullified it with a simple strike. His strength was so terrifying that it shocked everyone present. This was because in their eyes, only a Saint King could easily nullify a Saint-Tier battle skill from a 7th heavenly layer saint ruler. Feng Yixiao did not do anything else. He glanced at Baihai indifferently and said, "Since my enemy's dead, I should leave as well." With that, he turned around and flew off into the distance. He had heard about the Flame Mercenaries and did not wish to completely offend this powerful organization. However, Feng Yixiao suddenly froze at this very moment. He came to a halt as his composed expression became extremely stern. He suddenly turned around and glanced in the direction of the city lord's estate with shining eyes. A meter-wide sword chi appeared out of nowhere and shot toward him with lightning-like speed. Like a streak of light, the sword chi possessed a shocking, violent, and destructive presence. It ripped through the space and caused the surrounding energy of the world to tremble like it was quaking in fear. Even the saint rulers and Feng Yixiao shivered inside. Feng Yixiao became extremely stern. Due to his special cultivation method, he possessed senses and instincts far sharper than an ordinary person. He could feel the threat of death on the black sword chi. The pressing presence and icy cold killing intent made him feel like he was suffocating. The sword chi moved extremely quick, so fast that Feng Yixiao could not even dodge it. It passed through his chest like a hot knife through butter, carving out a fist-sized hole. Feng Yixiao grunted as a mouthful of blood spurted out. It turned into a bloody mist as it rained down. He became extremely pale at that moment and lost his ability to levitate, falling out of the sky and toward the ground. Bang! Feng Yixiao struck the ground and a huge crater formed in the soft soil. Dust was kicked into the air. The saint rulers all became stunned by the sudden occurrence. None of them had thought that the imposing Feng Yixiao would be so weak before the sword chi. "Captain, it's Captain." Captains returned. Very soon, a saint ruler thought through everything and cried out in joy. The dark energy with its terrifying presence filled with violence and destruction is something that only Captain Jian Chen can control. Fantastic, I never thought that Captain Jian Chen had returned at this crucial moment. With Captain Jian Chen, the Wolf King's dead for sure. Our flame mercenaries are not one to be stepped over like that. The four other saint rulers were filled with excitement just like Baihai. Although they had never seen Jian Chen before, they were extremely familiar with Jian Chen's chaotic force since this never-before-seen energy had become a representation of Jian Chen. Although no one recognized the chaotic force, the unique presence of the energy had become known to many experts of the continent. Outside the city, Feng Yixiao climbed out of the crater with difficulty. He knelt on one knee with a pale face as his body gently trembled in an uncontrollable manner. His face was filled with pain and blood spurted from his chest wound like a fountain, dyeing all the soil red. Feng Yixiao was in excruciating pain. When the sword chi had passed through his chest before, a small amount of residual chaotic force was left behind, which was now rampaging violently through his body. His organs and blood vessels had all been reduced to a mess by the chaotic force. Even when he used all his power to suppress and resist the rampaging chaotic force, it was not enough to stop the chaotic force, let alone wipe it out. Jianchen. I never thought that the captain would actually be in the city today, Feng Yixiao growled. He had heard many rumors regarding Jianchen, so he immediately guessed the identity of the person who had shot out the sword Qi. A white-robed figure quickly flew toward Feng Yixiao before stopping 3 steps in front of him. He was a young man who seemed to be in his 20s. He was handsome and possessed defined facial features that radiated a heroic spirit. His eyes were cold, and he did not give off any presence at all. He seemed just like an ordinary person. The young man stood with his arms crossed as he stared emotionlessly at Feng Yixiao. He said, "You sure are courageous to come kill a person of my flame mercenaries as just a mere saint ruler." Feng Yixiao raised his head to look at the young man. His eyes narrowed slightly when he caught sight of the young man's face. Although this was the first time he had personally seen him, he had seen many images of the young man in the past. "It really is you, Jianchen." Feng Yixiao growled as he sighed inside about his luck. Feng Yixiao was bold enough to come to the flame mercenaries all by himself to kill Gu Tu because he was certain that the captain was not in the city. Coupled with that fact that he hated a wandering lifestyle and that he was at the edge of breaking through, he planned on killing off his enemy before settling down in some desolate region to cultivate. At that time, Jianchen would not be able to find him no matter how great his abilities were. But he had never thought that Jianchen would happen to be in the city. His original plan was sound, but fate had other ideas. Chapter 1207, Changyang Hu's Arrival, 3, Jianchen, my enmity with Gu Tu is personal. It has nothing to do with your flame mercenaries, so are you trying to interfere with our personal matters? Feng Yixiao growled. Even though he knew that the person before him was undefeatable, he felt no fear at all. Your enmity with Gu Tu has nothing to do with me, but Gu Tu is still a member of my flame mercenaries. Am I really supposed to let people kill off members of the flame mercenaries as they wish? Not to mention, you killed him right in the open, right in front of countless other members of the mercenaries, Jianchen replied in an extremely indifferent voice. Feng Yixiao knew that he was done for today after listening to Jianchen's reply. He clenched his teeth and was still rather unwilling to give in. He said, "Jianchen, you probably had already discovered me when I had arrived with your abilities. Why do you have to deal with me right after I killed Gu Tu and not before?" At this moment, Bai Hai and the 4 other saint rulers arrived beside Jianchen as well. The 4 of them looked at Jianchen with unhideable admiration as well as some fear. Jianchen looked at Feng Yixiao again. He turned around and flew back toward the city. He indifferently commanded, "Finish him off on the spot." "Yes, Captain." The 4 saint rulers responded at the same time. Excitement filled all their eyes. Killing a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler was extremely stimulating to them as well as a great honor. Bai Hai looked at Feng Yixiao with some regret. He gently shook his head before turning and returning to the city as well. Bai Hai felt extremely regretful because someone who was just about to reach Saint King would die just like this. The level of a Saint King was a realm of cultivation that Bai Hai had longed for himself. The 4 saint rulers all smiled viciously. They had been deterred by Feng Yixiao to the point where they had not dared to do anything. They only helplessly watched as their companion was killed off. They felt extremely oppressed inside, and now they could finally vent their feelings. Looks like today is my death day. To think that I've wandered for all these years killing so many people. Even experts more powerful than me would fail to take my life, but in the end, I will die in the hands of a few ants instead. What a pity, what a pity. Feng Yixiao sighed at the sky as he was filled with regret. Although he was only struck by a single attack from Jianchen, his wounds were extraordinarily severe. The destructive chaotic force rampaged within his body, and he could not suppress it at all. Every moment his wounds rapidly became worse. He had completely lost the ability to fight now. Although he could flee in the form of a soul, Feng Yixiao did not believe he had that ability in front of Jian Chen. The outcome in the end would still be the same. The four saint rulers all smiled viciously as they lifted their saint weapons. Killing a ninth heavenly layer saint ruler was something they felt they could take pride in, which was why they planned to finish off Feng Yixiao together. Stop! At this moment, a loud shout echoed over from the distance. As it came from just too far away, it had become extremely faint when it arrived where Feng Yixiao was. However, they all heard it clearly. Jian Chen jerked slightly and suddenly looking in the direction of the voice. On the horizon, a black speck had suddenly appeared. It was approaching the area with lightning-like speed. Although it was very far away, Jian Chen could see the person clearly with his eyes. Immediately, his indifferent eyes began to shine brighter as he stared fixedly at the black speck. Disbelief filled his face. The four saint rulers did not care who the person was. They swung their saint weapons at the same time, chopping at his heart, throat, head, and forehead. Feng Yixiao could only watch helplessly as the four saint weapons rapidly drew near. He did not even have the power to dodge due to the injuries from the chaotic force. Stop, don't harm Senior Feng. The person yelled again. The voice was filled with panic, but it was still not enough to stop the four saint rulers. Jian Chen's face changed slightly when he heard that. Without any hesitation, he flicked a finger and shot out 4 weak sword qi toward the saint weapons of the saint rulers. Ding! 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 With 4 crisp sounds that sounded like metal colliding, the saint weapons were deflected by Jian Chen's sword qi. They swept past Feng Yixiao, and in the end, it struck the ground and produced a great hole with a loud boom. The 4 saint rulers looked at Jian Chen in surprise and were all filled with confusion. You are dismissed, said Jian Chen, but he remained focused on the figure that drew closer and closer. Yes, Captain. The 4 saint rulers respectfully replied and obediently stepped away after putting away their saint weapons. Jian Chen's orders were like the edict of a ruler. Even though they were all confused by his actions, none of them questioned him. The figure drew closer and closer and his appearance could gradually be made out. He was a disheveled but extremely burly man in tattered clothing. His messy hair covered most of his face and the only portion that could be seen was dirty. It was covered with dirt. He seemed like a beggar. The 4 saint rulers could not help but shift their gaze toward the disheveled man who ran over. They were extremely curious. They wondered just who this person was. They wanted to know who was enough to change the captain's decision of killing Feng Yixiao and make him personally deflect their saint weapons to save him. However, when they saw the man, gleams of light flickered through their eyes at the same time. As saint rulers, they could obviously tell that the man was only a Earth Saint Master, but he ran so quickly that even wind-attributed 6th cycle Heaven Saint Masters were no match for him. Even with Heaven-tier battle skills, it was impossible for an Earth Saint Master to run at such a speed. The beggar-like man ran to the side of Feng Yixiao with lightning-like speed, as if he did not notice the other people standing around. He dropped down to lift up the heavily injured Feng Yixiao and asked in worry, Senior Feng, are you all right? Feng Yixiao obviously recognized the man that he had just separated with. A sliver of surprise flashed through his eyes as he weakly asked, Kid, why'd you come here? And how'd you catch up? Senior Feng, I felt that you were in danger when you left, so I immediately chased after you. It's fortunate I wasn't too late, the disheveled man seriously replied. He was secretly relieved inside, extremely glad that he had made it in time. You dumb brat. How can matters that even I can't change be changed by you? Leave here immediately, or I might end up dragging you in and causing trouble for you as well, Feng Yixiao powerlessly explained as he coughed blood. His injuries were still worsening, and it had even become rather difficult for him to speak. He even suspected that if Jian Chen did not kill him, he would only be able to last for another quarter of an hour or so. If he was a true Saint King, he might have been able to temporarily suppress the chaotic force if he used everything he had, but too bad he was not quite there yet. Jian Chen stared blankly at the disheveled man. His eyes were wide open with disbelief visible across his face. Brother." Only a long while later did Jian Chen involuntarily mutter a word. His voice was filled with surprise. Didn't his brother go to the Pure Heart Pavilion? Why would he have appeared here of all times, and why was he in such a horrible shape? Chapter 1208, Jian Chen's worry. Changyang, who became stunned as well when he heard the extremely familiar voice. Instinctively, he looked toward Jian Chen and recognized the handsome young man at first glance. The young man was his youngest brother that he had not seen in quite a few years. His eyes immediately became filled with surprise, and he asked in astonishment, "Brother, how is it you?" However, he soon understood everything once he saw the huge city walls completely forged from tungsten alloy. He had never thought that he would arrive at the Flame Mercenaries' den by chasing Feng Yixiao. Jian Chen rushed over to Changyang, whose side with a long step as he looked at him in excitement and doubt. He asked, "Brother, didn't you go to the Pure Heart Pavilion? Why have you suddenly appeared, and why are you in such a horrible shape?" Did the Pure Heart Pavilion? Jian Chen paused there, but the meaning was self-evident. Everyone present understood what he meant. Jian Chen suspected that Changyang, who had been booted from the Protector clan, or how could he have ended up in such a miserable state? Even his clothes were not in one piece. Feng Yixiao immediately became shocked by what Jian Chen had said. Never did he think that the interesting kid that he had come across during his journey would be a disciple of a Protector clan. Other than that, Changyang, whose identity shocked him even more. He was actually the elder brother of the Flame Mercenaries' captain, Jian Chen, which filled him with disbelief. Changyang, who obviously guessed what Jian Chen meant as well. He shook his head gently and said, "Brother, it's not what you think. Let's talk about it later." Changyang, who paused and glanced at the heavily injured Feng Yixiao in excruciating pain. He said, "Brother, just why did you and Senior Feng fall out? Why have you beaten to Senior Feng to such a degree?" Jian Chen glanced at Feng Yixiao with some mixed feelings. He asked, "Brother, do you know each other?" Changyang, who examined Feng Yixiao's wound as he said, "Brother, Senior Feng has saved my life before, so can you let him go for your older brother?" Jian Chen agreed without a second thought before striding over to Feng Yixiao's side. He gently pressed his hand on Feng Yixiao's shoulder, sucking away the residual strand of chaotic force. Feng Yixiao's face loosened immediately once he was free from the torture of the chaotic force. However, he still felt shocked because of the energy used by Jian Chen. The energy was just too terrifying. If it remained within him, he probably would have passed away without anyone else taking part. The four saint rulers looked at each other. They had never thought that they would witness something so dramatic. The Wolf King of Greed, who had rushed over aggressively to kill a saint ruler of the Flame Mercenaries, had actually known Jian Chen's elder brother, Changyang Hu. They were speechless. On the other hand, Bai Hai was very calm as well. He did not seem to care that Feng Yixiao had slain a great protector of the Flame Mercenaries. With a flip of his hand, Jian Chen drew 3 thumb-sized pills from his space ring and passed them to Feng Yixiao. He said, "Since you've saved my brother's life before, I will no longer pursue the death of the protector. Here are 3 Class 6 Radiant Spirit pills. They won't be enough to completely heal your wounds, but they can allow you to recover some strength for battle. I have my own medicine." Feng Yixiao did not accept Jian Chen's pills and instead pulled out a jade bottle from his space ring. He poured all the pills in it into his mouth before immediately circulating his energy to heal. He was extremely heavily injured. Although the chaotic force had been sucked back by Jian Chen, he needed to stabilize his condition as soon as possible, or it might even lead to future side effects if it continued to worsen. Jian Chen put his pills away awkwardly before turning to Changyang Hu, "Brother, I'll take you back to Flame City." We haven't seen each other in quite a few years, so let's catch up properly. Changyang, who wanted to catch up as well. It had indeed been quite a long time since he had last seen Jianchen, so he had a lot he wanted to say. However, when he looked at Feng Yixiao, he became hesitant again. He said, "Brother, I'll watch over Senior Feng. Once he recovers, I'll come to Flame City." Jianchen nodded before telling the 4 saint rulers to return themselves. He stayed behind with Changyang, who while Biyao had returned to the city after greeting Changyang, who. 4 hours later, Feng Yixiao opened his eyes. He was still rather pale. Although he did not make a full recovery after 4 hours, he had regained some strength. Jianchen and Changyang who spoke during those 4 hours, so he finally understood Changyang who's current circumstances. However, as soon as he thought about the fact that his brother might end up forgetting about their brotherhood in the future, Jianchen felt pained. In reality, Jianchen had discovered what was happening with Changyang Hu several years ago. Back then, when Changyang Hu was limbless, he had already begun to display an abnormal mental state. He had never thought that after so many years, Changyang Hu would have traveled further and further down that path. He had already severed most of his 7 emotions and 6 desires, and all that was left was his sentimental feelings. "Senior Feng, you've woken up. How has the recovery gone?" Changyang Hu stopped talking with Jianchen when he saw Feng Yixiao open his eyes. He arrived by his side and asked in concern. Feng Yixiao's opinion of Changyang Hu had undergone some minute changes now. He could not help but laugh aloud when he heard Changyang Hu ask about his well-being in such a concerned manner. He stood up and said, "I've recovered 30% and can run now." "Kid, I never thought that your identity would be something so impressive, truly catching me off guard. A few days ago, I saved your life, and now you've saved mine, so we no longer owe each other anything. Alright, I won't say anything more. Farewell. I hope that you will still remember me the next time we meet." Feng Yixiao walked away as he spoke. By the time he finished talking, he had already left. "Senior Feng, I will definitely still remember you the next time we meet," Changyang Hu cried out to Feng Yixiao. Jianchen frowned slightly when he heard that, and he became more and more worried. He had no idea how many years it would be when the two of them would meet again, nor did he know if Changyang Hu would still treat their brotherhood and his connection with his family with importance. "Brother, why don't you stop going down that path and choose another cultivation method? I can help you find a suitable, pure cultivation method," Jianchen suggested in some worry. He did not wish for his brother to change. Changyang Hu sighed gently. He said, "Brother, I can't stop now. I feel like I have no other paths other than this one, and even if I don't want to proceed down this path, a mysterious force will push me along." Jianchen fell silent. He could already sense that his brother's fate seemed to have been determined by the heavens. It could no longer be changed. The two of them became rather depressed because of fate. They both subconsciously stopped talking and arrived at the city lord's estate at the same time. "Brother, I heard that you let that troublemaker go. Is that true?" Biyao asked as she clung to Jianchen's arm back at the estate. Jianchen nodded. "It's because Feng Yixiao is the savior of my brother, so I let him go." "Brother?" Biyao became doubtful, but when she saw Changyang Hu beside him, she became stunned. And her small mouth immediately fell wide open. She looked up and down to examine Changyang Hu as disbelief flooded her eyes. "Brother Ahu, how is it you? Why are you like this?" Biyao asked in surprise as her mouth hung agape. Yu walked in from outside as well. When she recognized that the disheveled man was Changyang Hu, she too became surprised. Changyang Hu glanced down at his tattered clothes and indifferently smiled. He said, "What's wrong with this? I feel this is rather nice." Biyao stumbled back with what Changyang Hu had said and almost fell down. Even Yu became speechless. Jianchen could not help but laugh aloud as well. He dismissed all the worry inside him and said, "Lianer, get some people to prepare some food and alcohol. I want to drink a few solid cups with my brother." "Alright, I'll go get that organized immediately. Oh right, why didn't you save Great Protector Gu too, brother? Why did you only move after he had died? Bai Lian asked in curiosity. Lianer, you need to understand that my Flame Mercenaries is not an asylum where people can seek refuge as soon as people encounter problems and thus break free from the problems. Gu too had no good intentions for joining our mercenaries. He wanted to use the Flame Mercenaries to deal with his enemy, and after his enemy was dealt with, he would probably have left us as well. What I did today was give warning to people who think like that. Just be more careful when you accept people in the future, said Jian Chen. Okay, brother. Jian Chen left Flame City earlier than planned because of Changyang Hu's arrival. The space gate constructed in the city when it had been captured by the Extinguishing Alliance was completely fixed as well. At noon on the same day, Changyang Hu put on a set of new clothes and left through the space gate to return to the Changyang clan with Jian Chen and Yu Yu. The return of the first young master made Changyang Ba and Ling Long extremely excited. Ling Long, who thought about her son all day and night, had even thrown herself at Changyang Hu's chest uncontrollably and burst into tears. Ever since Changyang Hu had left the clan several years ago, Ling Long felt like she was living in pain every day. The words of the pavilion master of the Pure Heart Pavilion from that day rang through her head like a curse every day. She really did fear that her precious son would forget her as a mother. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.